So good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to thank, who am I thanking? The Library Club, the Garden Club, who else am I thanking?
That's it.
Everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Say, each and every person? Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here and for supporting me and my family, and for contributing to my daughter's Lululemon clause. If you know what that is. I see my credit card statement and I say to my wife, what is a Lululemon? I said to her. And she says, oh, that's where your daughters shop. I go, well, what are they buying for $140? And she says, oh, they're buying leggings. And I said, leggings. And I look at my wife who's wearing leggings, right? And I go, you mean what you're wearing right now? And she says, yeah. I go, but I bought those for you at Costco for $20. And she's like, oh, yeah, that's right, but your daughters buy $140 leggings. I'm like, you're kidding me. I almost fell down, right? So thank you for being here. I am Robert Siciliano. I am from the Boston area. I actually live in Revere. And I'm very happy to be here today. So we have, what, 2-3 hours together? How long am I going to be here for? 2.5? Okay. Plenty of time. We have a lot to talk about. And the title of the program is Defending from Hackers, Attackers, and Thieves, Protecting Yourself from Fraud, Scams, Identity Theft, Hacking, all that fun stuff. Okay? Now my presentation is what I call open forum. And that means at any given point in time, you got a question, you got a comment, you got feedback, raise your hand. I'll hit you up right there and then. This presentation and the information is really all about you. It's about what your cares are, what your concerns are, what your risk is, you know, what you want to protect. So at any given point in time, you got questions, I'm here to help, okay? Thank you very much. So, and my friend Ruthie here is here to do a introduction. Do you want to come up? Could you please? All right. You good? And how is it that you don't have glasses? Because I need glasses.
I had the cataracts removed and I'm fine.
My mother-in-law had the cataracts removed and she doesn't need glasses either, so that explains
I
it.
just needed reading before. Now they put a lens in and I see, and I read the tiny print in the ingredients in the supermarket.
It's amazing.
Didn't do that before.
I need cataracts.
See, as long as you can.
Oh, I can't stand these glasses. Well, thank you so much for being here. Ruthie's my good friend. You ready? All right, go for it.
Now that you said that I'm looking at this, I should have glasses.
You want my readers?
I'd read light. Here we go. Why don't you read it? You're better than me. And this was, he wrote this for me to say, so.
Well, thank you so much. So I am a Boston-based security expert and private investigator with 30 plus years of experience, a best-selling Amazon author of 5 books, and the architect of the CSI certification, a cyber, social, and identity personal protection and security awareness program. I have been featured on CNN, Fox News, NBC Nightline, The Today Show, Good Morning America, The New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Entrepreneur Magazine, and many more. I've also been on The Howard Stern Show. I am a 12-time Boston marathoner, and with Ruthie's help, I've raised over $150,000 for Dana-Farber and Children's Hospital, and I consider myself the man with the plan, so thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. All right, so let's get right into it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about scams, right? Because my dad's 75, and we have this ongoing conversation that there isn't a day that goes by that there isn't somebody out there trying to pick our pocket. Oh, yeah. Every day of the week, okay? Whether it's a government agency, a utility, a cellular phone provider, a cable provider, or somebody actually trying to pick our pocket or scam us over the phone or via email or in person. Okay, every single day of the week. So let's talk about the various scams that occur and what to be aware of, okay? So telephone scams. I tell my, my audiences, be aware every single time the phone rings, okay? And I mean every single time the phone rings. Probably for me, 2 or 3 times a day, my phone rings and it's probably some type of a scammer, right? So the majority of the time these days, I'm letting that phone call go into voicemail and then I'll check out who it was. If it's caller ID and it's somebody that I know, then I'll usually pick it up. But you also do need to be aware of something called caller ID spoofing. And what that means is that not every single time the phone rings and the phone caller ID shows, say, local police, a government agency, and so forth, caller ID can be switched up. It can be changed. It can be scammed. So don't necessarily always trust what shows up on caller ID. That's a real problem. So if it's a friend, if it's a family member, still even be suspect, okay? So just don't automatically trust caller ID, especially when you pick up the phone and they're making some type of a financial request. Always be careful of that, okay? Yes?
Never say yes to whatever questions they ask, because they will record yes, and that's the answer to whatever they want you to give them.
Yeah, and that happens on like voice biometrics. So whenever there is a, so always be aware of that as well. Utility scams, threatening calls to shut off power. So this often happens at small businesses. That small business might receive a phone call that says, we're going to shut off your electricity if you don't pay this bill. And they might ask to pay the bill via gift cards or Bitcoin or credit card. Even for yourselves, if they call and they say, if you don't pay this right now over the phone with the credit card, we're going to shut off your electricity, we're going to shut off your gas, shut off your heat. So don't necessarily trust that. Every time the phone rings, be suspect. Invoice scams, you might receive actual phone calls or emails or actual snail mail that says to pay a particular bill, okay? I wish I didn't have to pay all my bills either, but there are utility scam type bills that when you receive them or any type of invoice, if you know for a fact that you didn't buy something or invest in something, don't pay it. I get a lot of invoice scams as a small business, okay? And as a small business, I get all these invoices to pay for telephone numbers, to pay for internet domain addresses, to pay for various government services that I pay the government for directly. I pay the internet company for directly, and so forth. So every single thing that I get in the mail, I look at, I read through it, I determine, do I really need to pay this, or is this an actual scam? Okay? Sometimes I pick up the phone, sometimes I do some internet research to find out what's going on there, and I might do a quick search for the name of that particular bill, and then the word scam, to see if there's anybody out there like me that's received something like that in the past. So I always do my research before I ever pay some type of a bill. Again, do on the internet or pick up the phone, okay? Don't necessarily trust it because it shows up in the mail and it's requesting you to pay a bill. Don't necessarily trust it, okay? Yeah?
Okay, I got something in the mail last week, and it was from a credit card company that I do have this credit card. And it said you haven't used it for like 32 months. If you don't use it by June, we're gonna shut it off. And meanwhile, they lowered the credit limit to $2,000. I'm like, okay, I think maybe I don't want it to go away, so I went to Lowe's and I bought some mulch, okay? I used a credit card, and I went online and made sure it was activated first. But I used the credit card and it went through. So then I put that stuff in the car and went back and got some flowers. I used it on the flowers. It was declined.
I don't know.
I don't know either. What do I do?
Well, I would call Lowe's to find out what's going on with your Lowe's card,
It wasn't Lowe's though. It's a Shop Your Way. It was a Sears.
It's a Sears card? I would call whatever the phone number is in the back of the card and ask them to find out what's going on.
Okay.
So whenever the card gets declined, and it's a store type card, that's what I usually do. I'll pick up
For the card though.
anytime I have any card issues whatsoever, I pick up the card itself, I call the number in the back, and I get a representative on the phone. I will never actually respond to anything, incoming calls. I always call back. I always call back, and if they have an app, a mobile app, I'll check out the mobile app and I'll go to the website. But always make the phone call to find out. Do you have something?
Not to the phone number they give you.
Not to the phone number they give you over the phone or via email. Call the number on the card itself. Yeah, question over here?
Okay, I got a text message from my bank telling me that one of my accounts I hadn't been using it, and they're going to make it inactive.
Yeah.
I use it like every 3 days, so I just ignored the whole thing.
Yeah, so you get a text message that's saying that your account's inactive, they're gonna shut it down. What they're hoping that you do is either call the number that's in the text message or respond to the text, hit reply. Always, always just call your bank directly, call your credit card company directly. Getting phone calls, getting emails, getting text messages, robots send that stuff. And those robots are connected to actual people that are monitoring that information. And they'll send out tens of thousands of text messages and emails and phone calls, and they know that if 1% of you respond, then, out of 1,000 people, that's a bunch of phone people responding. They can make a lot of money. So always just make a phone call to the actual bank itself. Yeah?
I also delete the number, deleted it and mark it as junk. So hopefully they won't use that same number, but they have a
Yeah.
ton of numbers.
I get those text messages every single day. Hey, it's Jenny. I missed you yesterday. And I just report that as junk and I block it every single day. And I get like 3 or 4 of those a day. And those particular scams, if you were to respond to any of them, then the first thing they're going to do is try to engage you. They want to get dialogue going. They want to find out more about you. Oh, you're not Jenny. Oh, so who are you? What's going on? Like, how are you today? Like, they want to find people that are lonely, that just want to converse, that they just want a friend, and eventually they strike up a conversation with you. And their goal is to find something in common with you, right? So they can lure you in. So always just hit delete and mark them as spam. Okay? Yeah?
When you get an email and you can see half of it, and if you click it, is that opening it or is
If you receive an email you're not quite sure about and you actually open up the email, that's fine.
okay?
When you get yourself into trouble is when you start clicking links.
Okay.
When you start clicking links and downloading stuff, that's when you start to get into trouble. But just opening up the email itself is not going to get you into trouble. Ruthie?
I got email from one of my friends like this, and they're saying to me, how are you, this and that, and they hacked their name. So if I report it as junk, I won't hear from my friend again. So I just delete it, is that right?
Yeah, so Ruthie got an email that was from somebody who was posing as her friend, but they were probably using a different email address.
Right.
So it comes on my regular email.
But if it came into your regular email, and if you were to mark it as spam, if you looked at it and you saw it was your friend's name, but the email address was not your friend's email,
Oh, my friends, they're not showing me their email.
if you were to if you hit the drop down and look at the source of it, or you could just call your friend to find out, was that you that emailed me? If they said no, then mark it as spam. And you should be fine.
But doesn't it come, then it stops that name from being used?
Not the name, it'll stop the actual fake email address from coming into you,
Okay,
but not the name.
all right.
Make sense?
Because I've just been deleting them. I was afraid I didn't want to stop real close to me. So, but I can report it as junk, so I get rid of their hacker.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Was there something else over here? All right? Yeah?
This is getting back to the telephone. There's a gentleman in Revere, and I know, I've even gotten his address and his last name. He uses my telephone number. I think he gives it to people when he doesn't want to get a return call from them. And one time I was at PetSmart, and I looked onto the board when she pulled up my number, and I saw his name under my number too.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they might be spoofing his number too. He may not be doing that on purpose. It could be the robots that are using like our local phone numbers, local extensions, to pose as somebody local. Like I get a lot of like 617 type spam, because they know that I trust 617 numbers. Or you might get 781 spam or 508 spam, because they know it's a local number and we're more likely to pick up a 617, 781, 508, 978 number because we are familiar with it. We think it's a friend, we think it's a family member, we think it's a local business. So it might be somebody just spoofing a local number. It may not be a particular guy that's doing that. It may be like the robots. We call them botnets. A robot network of computers is called a botnet. And I know that sounds a little techie, but that's what it is. And they use like hacked computers to send out emails and send phone calls and send text messages to spoof and to spam us, to get us to react and to respond to click links. So just be careful. P.T. Barnum said, there's a sucker born every minute. Okay? And here's the deal. And understand this. There's about 250 people that are born in the world every minute. And my belief is that every single person born is a sucker, including me, including you. No offense. And here's why. We are born trusting each other by default. Meaning, as an interdependent species, when you're born human, you are born trusting because you need to rely on each other for our survival. We would not procreate if we didn't automatically trust each other. We would not survive as a species if we didn't trust by default. Not trusting others is actually not normal. Not trusting others is not trusting others is a learned behavior. We learn to not trust others generally early on in our lives. Like at the age of like 5, 6 years old, you're playing with some kids and one of these kids hits you. They actually hit you. You're like, whoa, why'd you hit me? You know? And you realize Johnny is not to be trusted. Because Johnny just hit you. You know, and you learn through pain, physical pain. You learn through deceit. Somebody betrays you. That some people are not to be trusted. And that's a hard lesson to learn. And we don't like that. We don't like the fact that we can't trust some people. We would rather just trust everybody. And so we go throughout life pretty much trusting most people we meet, pretty much every time the phone rings, pretty much every time email comes in, pretty much, every interaction we have, we trust that everybody is good and kind and nice and civil towards one another. So it's not normal and it's not natural to not trust. And because we trust by default, we want to believe the emails that come in. We want to believe the text messages. We want to believe every person that we meet and every time somebody knocks on the door. And what we need to recognize and realize is that there's probably about 2 to 3% of the world's population, about 2 to 3% of the people in the world cannot be trusted. I think that's about right. And when I say 2 to 3%, that's based on all the research I've done, statistical information, how many people throughout history have ended up being incarcerated, statistics around how many people are actually considered or diagnosed sociopaths, psychopaths, and essentially narcissists, hardcore narcissists. So if you look at that, it's about 2 to 3% of the world's population. And those people don't experience, like you and I do, they don't experience empathy, sympathy, remorse, guilt. They don't know those things. And they look at you and I as their natural predator. Their natural prey. They look at you and I as their natural prey. They are the predator, we are the prey, and they scam us, they harm, hurt us. They look at us as, we deserve it. It's okay for them to take from us, and so on. So when I say don't automatically trust, I mean it. Don't automatically trust. And I know that's hard to do because it's more natural and more normal to trust. And you have to make effort to not trust. So when you understand that, when you begin to allow that to set in to your psyche, then you begin to recognize risk in a different way. You look at each email that comes in, you look at each text message, you look at each phone call, you respond to each knock on the door as, what is this person's motivation? What is this text message's motivation? And so on. And you become a bit more cynical, and that's okay, but that's how you need to get into a mindset to recognize risk. You don't worry about these things, but you react effectively to all these inbound communications in such a way where you don't just blindly trust. Make sense? So you guys need chairs. Let's give them a couple of chairs. All right? So hold on. We have one chair. It's okay. Would you like to sit right here?
That's fine.
I think this will be all right. And you need a chair over there. Let me get a chair for you, okay? Are you guys together?
No, that's okay.
Are you cool back here? Yeah, okay. All right, here you go. Enjoy. All right. So, question, yes.
I have Comcast, and one of the things that I have is a phone record. It tells me who called me, how long we spoke, what date it was, and so forth.
Yeah.
And calls that I make too. Whether I answer the calls, whether I get an answer, it doesn't matter. It records every single number
Yeah.
and the name if it has it. Well, every time somebody calls me, it shows that I made a phone call to a 202, which is Washington DC phone, which I didn't do, but it shows that I did.
Have you talked to Comcast about this?
Yeah.
And what do they say?
They have no clue. They can't stop it and they can't.
Is it affecting your bill?
No.
Then don't worry about it.
Okay. When you call the number, it's always busy.
As long as it's not affecting your bill, as long as you don't have any type of call forwarding turned on. Do you have call forwarding?
No.
Because you should ask Comcast if you have call forwarding turned on. Because it sounds to me like what you just said, that if somebody calls you, it's ringing to a 202 number, like you're calling it. There might be a call forwarding turned on that's going to that 202 number. So I have call forwarding.
I have to set up that phone.
Well, you may not have. There may be a glitch in their system. You may have and not known it. Somebody else in your life might have done that. I would call Comcast and find out, do you have call forwarding turned on? Ask them that. And then find out, how do you turn off call forwarding? Okay? If it's not costing you anything, no big deal.
I can call anywhere practically in the world for nothing.
Yeah.
All included.
Yeah. Find out if you have call forwarding turned on.
Thank you.
Question to the back.
No, it's not a question, it's an answer. Janice, that had happened to me
Okay?
because they were hacking me, so all my phone calls were going to them. So what happened was they had all my calls sent to them, so they knew when my bank was calling me.
So your phone was getting call forwarded.
Was getting call forwarding, so Comcast, I talked with this girl and she was fabulous and she turned it off for me.
Yeah, you might have call forwarding turned on.
And I
So
don't
you can
know.
ask Comcast to turn it off for you.
Yeah, you can disable that.
Thank you.
Or you might hit like star something, star in 2 digits, like star 69 or something to that effect, which might turn it off. But if you Google turn off call forwarding Comcast, start with that, and then call them to find out what the deal is. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So we talk invoice scams, gift card scams, right? Gift card scams essentially are like if you have an assistant at work, which I'm guessing a lot of you are retired. Nobody's going to call if your assistant calls you and says if your assistant receives a phone call to buy 5 Apple gift cards to give out to clients, and that assistant is told to scratch the code on the back of the gift cards and email them to me, that's a scam. What I tell people in regards to gift card scams in general, if you're buying gift card scams, if you're buying gift cards, if you're getting gift cards, is to use them as quickly as possible. Because sometimes bad guys will go into stores and they'll steal gift cards. They'll actually scrape the code off the back. They'll get some information on the gift card and they'll check it online. And when somebody actually buys the gift card, then they liquidate the gift card pretty quickly. So just use them as quick as possible. Let me see. We're going to talk bad USBs, wire fraud in a minute. Scareware. Scareware is when you get a pop-up that scares you into buying antivirus that you don't need. Okay, so if you ever get a pop-up that says, hey, you've got a virus in your computer, just be careful about that. Do an antivirus scan to find out if you do in fact have a virus on your machine. But if you just get a general pop-up while you're on your browser that says you have a virus, pull up your credit card and pay for this, it's trying to scare you into buying antivirus or software that you don't need. Okay, be aware of that. And then, let me see, ransomware. Ransomware is a software essentially that encrypts your information on your own computer. And it hold your data for ransom. We've seen this happen in a lot of small and large businesses. And the only way you'll get ransomware is if your device is outdated. Like if you're using Windows XP, or if you're using a Windows 7 machine from 2000, say 13 or 14, you need to upgrade your hardware to upgrade your software. So ransomware generally happens when you have unpatched operating systems, unpatched browsers, when you have older devices, when you have outdated software. So as long as you keep everything updated, automatically updated, all your hardware, all your software, generally you should be in pretty good shape. We'll get into updating your operating system and software in a little bit as well. Let me see, tech support scams. So any pop-up you get, any phone call you get that says, hey, this is Microsoft, or you get a pop-up that says, hey, this is Microsoft, or this is Apple, right? We need to log into your computer because we sense that there's a problem with it. That's always a scam, okay? So tech support scams are really good at getting you all emotional, right? Getting you involved in their drama, and they want you to click that link or pick up that phone and make this call to probably a call center overseas. And then what happens next is they ask you if they can log into your computer remotely from overseas. And once they're on your machine, you see your mouse moving along the screen, and they're installing software onto your laptop or desktop that allows them to remotely access your computer 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. So be aware of remote assistance scams via a pop-up or a phone call. Just hang it up or just shut that pop-up down and don't respond to it. All right?
Yeah, can I add to that? That scam has been out for a long time.
Yep.
But I just got a pop-up the other day from Microsoft, the old blue screen, and then you couldn't do anything. And so I said, oh, I know this is a scam. So I could click, and I didn't click on it, but I wanted to click out of it.
Yep.
I couldn't. So unplug.
Anytime stuff like that happens, that they're controlling your actual machine, meaning you can't shut it down, you can't shut that pop-up down, then yeah, disconnect from the internet if possible, unplug the wire from the back of your computer, shut down any Wi-Fi, reboot the computer.
I did force quit and got rid of it.
Force quit, that can also help. Good, that's good. So be aware of all that stuff. IRS scams, the IRS is not going to call you, they're not going to email you, right? They might send you snail mail, and they could knock on your door, right? But be aware that they don't call and they don't email. So any type of scams, or they're trying to scare you via email, they're trying to scare you via telephone, it's not the IRS. Same thing with CIA, Secret Service, FBI, they're not going to call you either, and they're not going to email you, okay? Neither is Medicare or Medicaid, for that matter. Social Security, right? They're just not going to call or email you. I highly doubt your local police are going to call you either as well. So always be aware of that. Just anytime anybody in authority calls you, be extremely suspect. I don't care what the ruse is. I don't care what you have to lose, or you're going to end up in jail, or you're going to lose all your money. I don't care what the ruse is. Don't react, don't respond. Hang up the phone, okay? And let me see, customer support scams, that's similar to, it's Apple calling, it's IKEA calling, always be aware it's not them calling. And then romance scams. Romance scams are a tough one, and here's the problem. So romance scams are very effective because, human beings, we want to be loved. All of us, okay? And because of that, innate desire, in need, in want, we want to be wanted. We want to be loved. And when we don't have that, at times in our lives, we may feel, in some cases, lonely, right? And if there is a time in your life where you feel, or when you feel lonely, right, that need, that want, that to fill that void, with romance scams can be filled by somebody who responds to an email, responds to a text message, and so forth. You put a profile on Match.com or JDate or Plenty of Fish, and they respond. Oh, I like your picture. I like your profile. Like, you look great, and I want to learn more about you, and let's get to know each other. And they begin to say all the things that people who want to be wanted want to hear. You know? And over time, they essentially groom you to feel whole again. You don't feel that loneliness any longer. And before you know it, they begin to ask for money for all these ridiculous reasons. It could be anything from flying you to see them overseas or in some part of the country, to they got in a car accident and their insurance for their health insurance lapsed, and that you need to please wire them money to pay the doctor's bill, and that they will wire that money right back to you once they get their check, and like just all this BS that you don't need to fall for. But it's very effective. And it's effective because we all want to be wanted, we all want to be loved, and when they start to make us feel good based on these inbound communications, then we are apt to trust them. And it's that trust that gets into trouble, okay? So just be aware of that. Okay, so let's hit you up on a few other things. Question over here, yeah?
Like, I got a bill emailed to me from like my Tufts Medical.
Yeah?
And saying that I had a balance.
Yeah.
And I should not have a balance. Can they copy that?
So if you receive an email from your medical provider with a balance, the first thing that I would do is call your medical provider. Pick up the phone, plain and simple. So whatever that email is, it might be legit or it might not be. So your reaction to it should be, pick up the phone. Call Tufts. Don't call the phone number in the email. Call the phone number on the back of your card, or call the phone number in your account. Or if you have an online account, which many of us do, log in to your online account to see if there's an actual balance. That's what I always do, and that's what I always suggest.
I just deleted it. I didn't do anything. I figured they'll send me.
They'll eventually send you a bill in the mail.
They'll eventually send you a bill in the mail, or they might send you another email. Regardless, I would pick up the phone to find out if, in fact, you do have a statement waiting for you. That's always the best thing. People do still answer the phone here and there, especially if you owe them money. Question?
How soon does it activate your machine when you hit the spam button? How many times somebody's spamming you all the time? You hit the spam button,
Yeah.
it's junk. How soon does that stop coming?
So the question revolves around, you're getting unwanted emails, and your email provider has like a spam button that you hit that puts that email in spam. So usually for me, right away for Gmail, it will put that email into the spam folder, okay? Usually right away. And then from that point on, I'm still probably going to be getting that email in my actual spam folder, unless when I hit spam, it gives me the option of spam and block. If it's spam and block, then I won't even see it in my spam folder. It'll just block that address from ever even coming into my spam, for that matter. Okay?
They use different numbers.
So spammers are using all kinds of email addresses and so forth, but it's kind of a game of whack-a-mole when it comes to listing stuff as spam. And I play that game of whack-a-mole. It's a time management thing. I don't want them to come into my inbox, so I'll mark it as spam. It goes into my spam folder. It might come as a different email address in the future, and I mark it as spam as well. Again, it's a game of whack-a-mole. It's the time management thing, and it's an unfortunate aspect of being digital, So, yeah.
Someone told me to hit report spam. What does that do?
So when you hit report spam, it's similar to marking it as spam and putting it into the spam folder. It's letting Yahoo and Gmail and AOL and maybe Outlook know that you consider this to be spam, and they put it on a blacklist. Yeah. Question?
Yes. What about unsubscribe? I belong to professional organizations which I've trusted and clicked on links, which I've done, with question, but they're well-known, but now I don't want to bother with them.
Yeah, I unsubscribe to stuff all the time.
Yeah, a couple of weeks. Well, I have, but I've done that recently, and they still keep coming.
Yeah, so when you hit unsubscribe and they keep coming, usually when you hit unsubscribe, it might take as much as a week or 10 days. It shouldn't take months for their system to purge your email address. And if it's coming in a week or two later, and you could always mark it as spam too, and it goes into your spam folder, and eventually you're probably not going to get it at all. Again, it's a time management annoyance thing, What else? Other questions? Yeah?
This was on my phone, and I got a Gmail to my email. It was on April 26th. It was very strange. I never got this before. It said that they were deducting from my PayPal account $534.35. There was an 84.
So I'm going to stop you right there. Anytime you get an email from any company that's saying that and they actually have an invoice attached. There's an invoice attached to the email, and that's an invoice scam. Or they say they're going to deduct a certain amount of money from your account, whether it's your PayPal account, your bank account, whatever, right? Just hit delete. Yep. And that's it. Like, you don't need to spend any more time on it than that. That really is it.
Bitfender Internet Security.
Yeah, they're saying that you had an antivirus program that you need to pay for. Yeah.
So, I got two, but this one was like, it's already.
We all get that stuff. There are millions to billions of those emails going out every single year. And it really does just boil down to an annoyance. Because you are here because you understand that you need to know more about internet security. You are here because you recognize risk. And recognize risk means knowing that every time there's a knock on the door, every time you get a phone call, every time you get an email, every time you get a text message, that you need to be somewhat suspect. So you know that if there's some type of a demand of money coming into you, that there is a 99.9% chance it is fraud. So just hit delete and don't automatically trust. There's no need to spend any more time investigating it. If it is a company that you actually do business with, right, like your healthcare company, like your bank, like Amazon or whoever, maybe pick up the phone and call the number on the card, call the number on the account to find out, okay, Tufts, are you actually sending me a bill? 9 out of 10 times, if I am suspect of what's going on, I will just log into my account to see what's going on in there, And if it ever shows up in my spam folder, there's a 99 out of 100% chance that it's, fraud as well, just spam, Yes.
I was logging on to Amazon and to order something for my daughter, and I'm typing up, and I really didn't look at it, and it told me I had to change my password. I changed the password, and then I looked. The address was a Revere address, wasn't even my account, it was somebody else's account.
So anytime you are logging into a particular account and it's asking you to change passcodes, I guess you just kind of need to stop and see what's going on there. Like, don't just knee-jerk respond to whatever that request might be. Make sure that you are logged into where you're supposed to be logged in with your correct URL, the website address like Amazon.com. Make sure that you're using your own username, your own passcode, and then once you log in, then you have the ability to make changes to your account. But don't just react or respond to a pop-up not knowing exactly what you're getting yourself into. Like everything else in life, you just kind of have to slow down, give it some focus, see what's going on there. Don't just impulsively respond, because you don't know what you're going to get yourself into. I was working with a friend last night that got some scammy emails into his inbox. Last night. This happened last night. Really, really smart guy. Best-selling Wall Street Journal author. Really smart guy, okay? And he got these few scammy emails into his inbox, and he got a little emotional about it. And he immediately figured, oh, my email got hacked. And I said, well, what makes you think that? He goes, well, look at these emails. And I looked at the emails, and there were elements of the email that were a little disturbing, like it had his actual email address, like in the email itself, and it looked like it was an Xfinity bill, and the nature of the email was aggressive, and it was designed to make you emotional. It was designed to get your blood pressure up, right? And so I looked at it and I go, yeah, I think that this is just a scam. Like, I don't think that somebody hacked your email. And I asked him, I go, do you have what's called two-factor authentication for your email? And what that means is, like, you log into your email with your username and a passcode, and then you get a one-time passcode via text message, to your phone. I go, do you have that? He goes, yes, I have that. I go, so, the likelihood of your email getting hacked if you have two-factor authentication is really slim. So if you do that basic thing, you should be good. And these don't look like your email is hacked. It just looks like just a basic scam 101. He's like, oh, but in the process of him seeing all these emails come in, he kind of freaked out a little bit, and he went ahead and he changed his passcode right away, okay? And when he did that, when he went ahead and changed his passcode like right away, he did it like on his phone while he was in a hurry, in the midst of doing something else, and didn't record his new passcode that he just changed, okay? So now he's locked out of his own account. And all of that happened, why? Because he got what? Emotional. He just got emotional. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to be flustered. They want you to be emotional. They want you to be overwhelmed. Don't. As simple as that. Just don't. Just pay attention, be aware, stop what you're doing, and don't just react. Give it some time. Give it some focus. Nothing is so pressing that you have to just do what they say because you got a pop-up or an email or a text. Okay? Yes?
I have an address to send emails to for Comcast abuse. And every time I get one that I think is a really bad one, and it's not just delete and forget about it, I think it's important.
Yeah.
I forward the email to Comcast abuse.
Well, you're a better person than I am because I don't have time for that stuff. But that's fine. If you want to send an email off to abuse@comcast.net or whatever the case is, that's great. I don't engage in those procedures or processes just because, again, it's a time management thing. And Comcast is getting thousands of those same people informing of that abuse. So, thank you for doing that for us. I appreciate that. Yeah?
I have the
Two-factor authentication?
on my charge accounts and stuff, and on my bank accounts on my phone.
Yeah?
I don't have it on my emails. How do you put it on your emails?
Every time you log into your email, you do it?
Okay, so the question is coming up regarding two-factor authentication in email, which is great, and you guys are getting a bit ahead of me, but let's go over it right now anyways. So let me, actually, can we table the answer to that question for a little bit? And we're gonna go over two-factor authentication and all your critical accounts and email and the repercussions of not doing it and how easy it is to implement it, okay? Just give me a few minutes, let me get through a couple of slides and so we can get to that point, all right? So, 27 billion records exposed in the first half of 2020. 27 billion of our records. That's names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, in many cases passcodes, credit card numbers, right? Mobile phone numbers. It's a lot of information, 27 billion. That's just in the first half of 2020, right? Moving on, 2021, 40 billion records exposed. Okay, so just in 2 years, we're looking at 70 plus billion records potentially in the hands of criminals. And look at this one. 2020, by the end of 2023, 146 billion records compromised. I concur with that, meaning that I agree that that's about right. About 150 plus billion records, and that's in the past decade, okay? So that's a lot of our information. So what this basically means is that your personal identifying information, your name, your address, your phone number, your email address, right? In many cases, sensitive information, credit card numbers, bank account numbers, credit card information, is likely in the hands of criminals. Now, I say that, and that might make you feel a bit uneasy, but I say, well, okay, don't worry about it, but you need to do something about it. And what does it mean to do something about it? Well, basically, if they have your social security number, you should consider something called a credit freeze, and we'll talk about credit freezes, or identity theft protection, which would essentially make the social security number useless to the thief. I will show you exactly how to get a credit freeze and what your options are for identity theft protection. Yeah, question.
2020, I wasn't filing income taxes. I get the letter from the IRS that somebody filed income taxes in my name.
Ah, yeah. You had tax-related identity theft. Somebody filed under your name to get your refund. Yeah, and I'm going to, and there's what's called an identity theft PIN through the IRS. I'll show you how to set one of those up.
I had already done it.
You already did that.
Wanted people to.
Oh, it's a thing.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So all of our information is out there. You hear about the dark web, right? And that data, our data, is in fact on the dark web. I've actually had criminal hackers email me my social security number. Hey, security guy, haha, gotcha. And I'm like, you know, whatever. I have identity theft protection. I have a credit freeze. So even if they have my social security number, there's not a whole lot they can do in regards to opening new accounts under my name. And so I'll show you how to lock down your credit so that even if they do have your social security number, you can make it useless to the thief. All right? So let me show you a couple more things here. Okay, so Equifax breach affects 146 million customers. That was like the end of 2017, 2018. I don't think the breach was discovered until like December of 2018. And so this is a significant identity theft event where over 2/3 of the American adult population's social security numbers ended up in the hands of criminals. Likely, they said, potentially Chinese hackers, okay? So now what do? How many of you actually have what's called a credit freeze? Raise your hand. That's about maybe 10% of you. So a credit freeze is a tool that you can get for free through the three major credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, okay? And I'm going to show you right now what it means to set up a credit freeze. And I'm here to answer any and all questions regarding credit freezes, what they are, how they work, and so forth. Okay, so let's go right now to my browser, okay? And we search credit freeze, okay? So right here, if you look on the screen, I search credit freeze TransUnion, right here, credit freeze TransUnion, all right? And when I search credit freeze TransUnion, there's a drop down, right, in the search bar, and what pops up is Experian credit freeze and Equifax credit freeze. Now the reason why I want you to search for TransUnion credit freeze, Experian credit freeze, and Equifax credit freeze is because when you do the actual search, it's going to bring you to the page on the credit bureau's website where you actually freeze your credit. To the page, meaning if you just go to transunion.com, they don't want you to find this page. They want you to go somewhere where you can enter your credit card number and you're going to buy something. And there's no need to do that. They want you to buy something. You don't need to buy anything. It's free. And the best way to get there is by searching TransUnion credit freeze, Experian credit freeze, and Equifax credit freeze. So again, you can get to the page to freeze your credit. Okay, so once we accomplish that, we go to the page right here. You see transunion.com/credit freeze, and you click on freeze my credit at TransUnion. We're going to click on that. Okay, so what does it say? We're at transunion.com/credit freeze. A credit freeze, also known as a security freeze, is the best way to help prevent new accounts from being opened in your name. It's absolutely free to freeze and unfreeze your credit, and it won't affect your credit score. Okay? It's free. It gives you control over whether or not somebody can open up new lines of credit under your name. A credit freeze is the best tool that you can get right now to lock down your identity so nobody can use your social security number to open up new accounts under your name. Question.
So if you wanna apply for credit, you've gotta unfreeze it.
If you want to apply for credit, you have to unfreeze it. As simple as that, okay?
Excuse me, how far in advance would you have to unfreeze it?
The question is, how far in advance would you need to unfreeze? So let's just say I'm gonna lease a vehicle. I'm gonna call my salesperson Kevin over at Sudbay up on 128. I'm gonna say, hey Kevin, I'm interested in getting one of them SLTs. What do you got in the lot? Oh, we got a couple new ones just came in. The inventory's coming back. Robert, any time, come on in. I'm like, great. I'm probably gonna come in this week. He's gonna say, oh, Robert, I recall you have that credit freeze thingy, right? I go, that's correct, Kevin, because I've done business with him for the past 10 years. And he's gonna say, oh, we're using TransUnion and Experian these days. So that means that I've got to temporarily thaw my credit at Experian and TransUnion before I'm going to go to the dealership and apply for a loan. Okay? Now, when I log in to TransUnion and I go to unfreeze my credit, it happens instantly. Okay? So if I thaw my credit at 7 p.m., at 7:01 p.m., it's going to be thawed temporarily. Okay, so I can go into the dealership anytime that week because I'm going to have it refrozen in the system a week later. I'm going to choose that because when I go into my credit freeze dashboard, right, it allows me to unfreeze when I want to unfreeze it and refreeze when I want to refreeze it. Make sense? Question.
Do you need a code for that? Don't they give you some kind of,
The question is, do you need a code? So when you set up an account at the credit bureaus, like any website, there's a username and a passcode involved. And in some cases, the bureau might provide you with an extra code. So just document that process. When you set up your credit freeze, if they require an extra code, make sure you plug all of that into your password manager, an Excel file, a Word document, whatever it is that you're using to remember your credentials, make sure you record all that information. Question?
Yes, I had a data breach recently and went through the process of registering with Experian because that they
Provided free identity theft protection?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I did that. And Experian said I did not need to register with the others because it was going to take care of the other two credit bureaus. Because,
Okay.
And I'm wondering if that's valid or not.
So she was a victim of identity theft, meaning that there was probably a data breach and her information was compromised and they offered 2 years of free identity theft protection. So I get those offers when there's a data breach and my social is exposed and so forth. Sometimes I take advantage of the free identity theft protection, sometimes I don't. I already have identity theft protection. I already have a credit freeze, so I don't necessarily need additional credit monitoring if I already have it. Do I want to take advantage of free? Sure. But do I need it if I already have a credit freeze? Not really. So if I already have a credit freeze and I already have credit monitoring, so as a AAA client, I'm a AAA client, I get free credit monitoring through Experian through AAA, which is kind of nice. So if you have a AAA, you can get free credit monitoring through AAA, right? So just Google it. Yeah, I would search, I would go into your AAA account and search credit monitoring, and chances are it's going to be right there waiting for you. Click a link and you can sign up for it, right? And I also already have the credit freeze, so I don't need additional. And so the particular free credit monitoring that you were subscribing to, they probably only monitored Experian, which is why they're saying you don't need it at the other two bureaus.
Oh, because I also went to the Federal Trade Commission and asked some questions. And they were saying that if you register with them and the Experian, it goes across as a warning to the other credit bureaus automatically.
What you're referring to actually is not credit monitoring. It's called a fraud alert. If you set up a fraud alert, if you are an actual victim of identity theft, and you set up a fraud alert, which means making a phone call to any one of the credit bureaus, setting up a fraud alert will then, at one bureau, they're going to tell the other two bureaus that you are a potential victim of identity theft. And so a fraud alert lasts for 7 years, and what that shows on your credit report is that you are a potential victim of identity theft, and that fraud alert will then prompt a lender who checks your credit to contact you directly to make sure that it's you applying for that new line of credit. Make sense?
Yeah, is that a good thing?
It's a good thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now a credit freeze still supersedes that. So if a credit freeze prevents them from even checking your credit to begin with. Okay? Yeah?
Can I go back to the AAA thing? Because I have that too, it's protect my ID.
Yeah, protect my ID through AAA.
Why am I paying for it? Because I have a freeze also. It's costing me like $120 a year or something.
So you're paying for credit monitoring that has additional features.
Is that something I need?
See, I don't do that myself.
Well, it's kind of stupid. It's like if I pay off some of my credit card, I'll get a notification, it'll say your score went up. Okay.
Yeah. Look, security is all about layers of protection. And the question revolved around, should I be paying for identity theft protection? And the answer is, well, if you can afford it. You know, there's nothing wrong with paying for identity theft protection. There's nothing wrong with all the bells and whistles that come with paying for identity theft protection. I'm currently not doing that. I have credit monitoring, I have a credit freeze, okay? And I have free credit monitoring through AAA, okay, through Experian. And the reason why I don't pay for it is because, well, I'm frugal, right? There's a difference between cheap and frugal. I'm frugal, right? I got to pay for Lululemon for my daughters, right? Beyond that, a credit freeze supersedes everything. Like, it's very difficult to open up new lines of credit under my name and social with a credit freeze. So the redundancy of identity theft protection is not a bad thing, because security is all about layers of protection. The more layers you have, the more secure you're going to be, you know? But do I need it? Really need it? I don't really need it. You know, it's good to have, but I don't really need it, you know? So if you want to save yourself like $120 a year, have the basic free monitoring, and that's probably enough, okay? But if you don't have a credit freeze, then you definitely want to have identity theft protection, definitely.
No, I have a credit freeze because I had a credit card opened in my name a couple of years ago. So
Yeah.
that's what I put it on, but I also was a victim of check washing in December, and that was a whole nother thing. So one of them, they didn't wash, it was made out to Kohl's, and they didn't wash it to Kohl's, yet it was still cashed at a bank.
Yep.
For a lot more money than it was worth, and so I had to close the Kohl's account, and therefore, when I opened a new Kohl's account, I had to go through the whole unfreezing process.
Yep.
To redo it, and so, you know, that's done now, but it was a nightmare, so I'm really skittish about anything, because nothing of this was done because I screwed up in any way.
That's because somebody leaked your social.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they stole my checks.
So, but the opening up new accounts under your name did not start from.
No, the first one that was probably the social.
Yeah.
This whole check.
We'll talk about check washing in a bit too. So as far, just getting back to the freezes, so you end up at transunion.com/credit freeze, and you see right here, add a freeze. I click on add a freeze, okay, and it brings you to a form to fill out to set up an account with TransUnion. So they're asking for, in this case, you know, it says, create a free TransUnion Service Center account to submit a dispute, request a credit report, or manage a credit freeze or fraud alert, okay? They're asking for your first name, middle name, last name, address, city, state, and zip. They want your email address, your mobile number, your date of birth, and your social security number. I'm okay giving them that information. I'm okay giving all of that data, okay? In order for you to freeze your credit, you're gonna have to give them all this sensitive, personal identifying information. And it's okay. It's the credit bureau. They already know who you are. They already have all that data on you anyways, okay? And in this process, once you fill this out, they're going to walk you through what's called knowledge-based authentication questions, KBA, or out-of-wallet questions. Basically, they're going to ask you questions in the sign-up process that only you should know the answer to, and those questions are based on information the credit bureau has on file. For example, they're going to ask you, did you have a bank account at bank A, B, C, or D? You should know where you've had bank accounts. Did you live at address A, B, C, or D? You should know where you've lived. Did you have phone number A, B, C, or D? You should know your phone numbers, and so forth. These are knowledge-based authentication questions based on, information that you know about your past addresses, bank accounts, phone numbers, and so forth. Yeah?
So you're really just verifying.
They're verifying that you are, in fact, are you setting up your credit freeze, is what that is.
Information they already have, and you're just telling them, yeah, that's.
Exactly. Thank you. Okay? She said they're basically just verifying that it's you setting up that account opposed to somebody else. And that's exactly what those knowledge-based authentication questions are. They're authenticating you based on your knowledge. Okay? Based on information that might be in your wallet and so forth. Okay?
Can I ask you a question kind of bouncing on the credit
Sure.
freeze? How does it affect if you're using like your debit card or your card from the bank? Is that freezing that?
So the excellent question, the question revolves around how does a credit freeze affect your existing bank accounts, credit cards, debit accounts? Does it freeze them too? No. The credit freeze serves one primary purpose. It is to freeze access to your credit report from lenders. That's it. Your existing credit cards, existing lines of credit, existing debit cards are in no way affected by a credit freeze. So you still can use your credit cards, you can still use your debit cards, you can still use your line of credit. None of those are affected in any way. The credit freeze fundamentally and primarily and only freezes your credit in such a way where nobody can open up new lines of credit under your name. So, if a bad guy has my social, which they do, and they apply for an American Express card under my name, which they can, when American Express submits the application to the credit bureau, the credit bureau is going to bounce it back to American Express and say, Robert Siciliano has a credit freeze, so we can't help you. And American Express will respond to the scammer and say, hey, Robert, you have a credit freeze, therefore American Express is not going to give you a credit card, which is good. Make sense? Okay? So this is what it looks like when you go to, TransUnion. And then similarly, you go to Experian, you search credit freeze Experian, this is the page you end up on, and it says, freeze your credit file for free. A security freeze, also known as a credit freeze, limits access to your Experian credit report, helping protect you against identity theft. Manage your freeze for free. New to Experian, sign up, create free account. We click on create free account. And it brings you to a very similar page. And there we are. Tell us about yourself, legal first name, last name, address, city, state, and zip, social security number, submit and continue. So listen, I'm pretty confident that there's a few people in this room that were here last year when I presented, and they froze their credit because they were here last year, okay? I got a few people nodding their heads. And that's usually what happens. Now, if you come to my presentation next year and you do not have your credit freeze frozen, what were you thinking? Right? So just freeze your credit. You know what I mean? Like Ruthie has seen me present 10 times. Her credit's been frozen for 10 years. You know? So freeze your credit. Okay?
That will be a question as we come through the door.
That's going to be a question when you come through the door next year. All right? So freezing your credit, it does not affect your credit, your credit ratings, your credit scores. When you want to unfreeze, you just log in, temporarily unfreeze. It's an easy thing to do, and it protects your identity from new account fraud. All right? What else do we got here? We have a lot. Okay, so, let me get back to one other thing, because I know that this is an issue. Let's just talk check washing really quick, because I believe just in the town of Saugus, there's been like 20 check washing scams that have occurred in this one town in the past year or so. Something to that effect. I could be statistically inaccurate there, but I think that's what I read. Or it might have been one of the surrounding towns. It might have been North Reading. I'm not really sure. But it's happening everywhere. Check washing scams on the rise, how to protect yourself. So, check washing consists of digitally manipulating a stolen check, usually taken from a mailbox, to alter the amount and destination of the deposit, as well as creating duplicate counterfeits electronically to be printed and cashed. So, the article goes on to say, get in the habit of monitoring your checking account and your banking information on a regular basis, which is one way to thwart check washing. So you may not prevent it from monitoring your accounts, but you can at least slow it down or stop it or stop the withdrawals. So I have what's called push notifications set up in my bank account. So every single time there's activity in my bank account, I either get a pop-up on my mobile app, I get an email, or I get a text message. So again, every single time there's a charge, there's a withdrawal, there's a bill paid, right? There's an ATM transaction, anything. I get a push notification, I get an email, I get a text message, I get a pop-up letting me know that there's activity on my account. I want to know in real time when something's happening on my bank account. And you should too. So setting up these push notifications is a matter of logging into your mobile app, logging into the bank or credit card's website, and setting up anything under notifications. And I check every single box to let me know whenever there's any type of a charge, any type of a transaction. So I get like maybe 3 to 5 pop-ups a day, 3 to 5 notifications a day. Because, we do a significant volume with, all of our various accounts throughout the month. And I'm good with that. Like, I want to know. And I'm okay with all these annoyances, these alerts, because it's my money. And it's a good thing to keep me on top of what is new in regards to all of my account activity. So log into your bank account, log into your mobile app, and find out what your options are for push notifications. And if that is a little too cumbersome for you, call the bank, call the credit card, and say, hey, can you set up notifications for me so I know every single time there's a charge? Question in the back.
Where do you find that on the mobile site?
So if you log into your, so the question is, where do you find that? I'm going to stop you right there. As far as where do you find it on the mobile, I would think that like Chase is going to be different than American Express, is going to be different than Marriott Bonvoy, and so forth. So it may not be in the exact same place, right? Usually, like if you go into your dashboard, alerts, you look for the word alerts, you look for the words notifications, right? And it might be different in each bank or each credit card company. And if you can't find it, pick up the phone and call them. I find that when you're administrating stuff like that, it's best to do it on a laptop or a desktop. I try to not do stuff like that on a mobile phone because it's just so small and it's a bit cumbersome and it may not have all the features that you're looking for. You know what I mean? Okay. Any other questions? Yeah?
The scheme that takes the washing,
The check washing, yes.
they take it from your domestic mailbox?
Yes, they do. So there's a couple of things going on there. Let me read a couple of things to you, sir. All right, you ready? We'll go through it, all right? I have it right on the screen here, okay? And I'm going to read it to you, I promise. Okay, so we just talked monitoring your accounts, okay? So in addition to consistent bank balance monitoring, okay, the next thing is don't mail checks from your own mailbox. And what that means is don't put the flag up so that the postal carrier can take your mail and mail it for you. Put it in the big blue box or take it right to the post office, is what they're saying. Why is everyone shaking their head?
Because, can I tell you about my experience? 2 accounts that I had, one I paid my brother-in-law's bills and one my own. I mailed them both in a blue mailbox on Central Street.
Okay.
The mailbox, obviously, somebody had taken it out. His 2 checks were altered so that they were for like $1,000 each more than.
But do you know that the big blue mailbox was robbed? Do you know that?
It had to have been.
But you don't know that. Here's what the reason why I'm challenging that, the reason why I challenge that and just please forgive me. The reason why I challenge that is because the blue boxes now are much harder to compromise.
But there's a
No, they
key.
stole the keys.
It's a universal key.
Yeah, they stole all the keys from people.
So you know do you know that the big blue box was compromised? Okay. So then if that's a problem locally that somebody's got the keys, take it right to the post office. Put it right in the counter.
But once it's done, it's too, like, it happened to be the end of December, and so I didn't know this was going on, and so.
Yeah.
And so I got taken, and so both his account and my account, there were, his checks were both, the names were altered.
They alter the names, they alter the amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the bank sent it back because he didn't have enough money, and so they weren't gonna cash.
The checks bounce. So, but do you know how you can prevent it besides taking it right to the mailbox? Does anybody know how to prevent check washing?
Yeah, you do them electronically now, because that's what I do.
Well, you could do it electronically. That's one option, right? Pay all your bills electronically. What is it?
Use a special pen.
Use a special pen. Okay, there is a special pen.
Well, I use a Sharpie, fine point marker.
Well, Uniball has what's called the Uniball 207. Uniball 207. So the Uniball 207 pen is designed to thwart check washing. Okay? So if you are doing books for anybody and you're manually writing checks, the Uniball 207 pen is designed to prevent check washing. Okay? So in order to protect yourself, the steps are, number one, pay electronically. Avoid checks altogether. Pay electronically. Number two, if you are actually handwriting checks, use a Uniball 207 pen. They're like $5. Start with that. All my pens are Uniball 207s, every one of them. And we don't even write checks anymore. We do them all electronically. We might write 1 or 2 checks a year. But use the Uniball 207 pen. And then take the mail directly to the post office. If you put the mail in your own mailbox with the red flag up, that's a red flag to identity thieves saying, come and get it. Okay? Right? So if the blue box is getting compromised in your town, the big blue box, take it directly to the post office. That's always the best thing. Okay? Beyond all that is when you're getting mail, checks, whoever's writing those checks, if it's a handwritten check, tell them to use the Uniball 207 pen. If you can get paid electronically, request that they do that. An electronic fund transfer, an ACH, whatever the case is. Right? I try to get paid electronically, automatic deposit into my account. The less paper in my life, the better. I know we talk about digital security and identity theft and hacking, but still, the less paper in your life means the less people in your life are touching or seeing your stuff. Right? Now, so did I answer any of your questions?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm very hesitant about exposure.
Right.
And when you're online, you're exposed. When you do this, you're exposed. Okay, the only thing maybe is 99% is snail mail. It's not exposed, but it can be.
Yep.
You know, right? So that's why I'm still old school and I'm dragging my feet.
So, but what are you dragging your feet with? What are you worried about?
Well, I just don't want to be like online and paying my bills.
If you don't want to be paying your bills online, that's fine too, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. For me, it's just a little more time. It's a little more effort. You know, I have all my bills. As a matter of fact, I have the majority of my bills right now set up so my credit cards pay my bill. My credit cards pay my bill. And I pay the credit card automatically every month, which gives me all kinds of frequent flyer miles, which gets me bumped up to first class all the time, if you want to do that, right? But beyond that, paying electronically is actually more secure. But it's still, if that's not in your wheelhouse, that's fine. Just use a Uniball 207 pen when you write those checks. Take that check right to the mailbox. All right? Question?
I also heard that you can use an indelible marker to write out your check.
So I don't know if you can use an indelible marker. If we were to Google indelible marker prevent check washing, let's see if it works. It may or may not. So
What do they wash the checks with? Is it bleach?
like it's a little bit of, it's like a, if you Google how to check washing solution, you can learn how to wash a check.
And I'd be arrested.
Well, but you can Google it, right? Indelible marker, check, washing. Use pens that are resistant to check washing. Gel pens with black ink are the most resistant to check washing. Rollerball, thick felt tip, and fountain pens are good choices. Blue ink, ball point pens, and permanent markers should be avoided. Okay? So there you go. All right? Look at any questions you ever have, just Google it, you know? All right, so let me see. Specifically in the case of check washing, the number one rule is to only write a check in gel pen, not ballpoint. And most bills are payable online, which can eliminate the need for physical checks altogether, making it far less likely to experience check cooking or washing. So, you have tips and tricks and tools and options, okay? All right, what else? Okay, so are we cool with credit freezes at this point? You know what to do? Any questions regarding check freezes?
Better do it or don't come back.
Better do it or don't come back, right? All right, let me show you a couple more things here. Hold on. All right, so credit cards, right? So how do you protect your credit cards? How do you protect your credit cards? Anybody know? You can't. There's no way to protect credit cards. None. I use my credit cards everywhere, and I'm not worried about credit card fraud. But I have push notifications. So I get a text message, I get a pop-up, I get an email, depending on the credit card company or the bank, and I get alerted when there's a charge. So we went to a restaurant last night, and when the server took our credit card, moments later, I get a pop-up on my mobile that said the name of the restaurant and that there was a charge, which is nice, because in real time, I get that notification. Now, sometimes I go to a restaurant, and I get that pop-up while I'm in the restaurant, and it's not the name of the restaurant. It's the name of something different that could be the company that owns the restaurant, but it's not the name of the building. Does that make sense? So the merchant name is different than the actual establishment where I'm using my credit card. You know? So what I like about these push notifications is they let me know in real time as my cards are being charged, and if I don't recognize the merchant, I can ask the server, are you guys actually like this on my credit card? Oh yeah, that's our merchant name. And that might happen with websites, it might happen with gas stations, it might happen with purchases that you might make on eBay and stuff like that. So push notifications give you more insight to your charges in real time. And if you are uncomfortable with it, you can make a phone call, you can send off an email, you can investigate it. You know, so I like that aspect of it. All right. So check statements refute unauthorized charges within 2 billing cycles. That's 60 days. It says here use credit cards instead of debit cards. So I don't actually use a debit card as a check card or as a credit card. I don't like the idea of my debit card that requires a PIN code at an ATM. I don't like the idea of my debit card being used for commerce. Because if my debit card is compromised, where's the money coming from? My checking account. You know, and I know of situations, because of the position that I'm in, you know, working with victims of fraud, I know of situations where people's debit card was compromised and they didn't get the money back. You know, so I don't use debit cards for that reason. I only use credit cards because if the credit card is compromised, where's the money coming from?
Insurance.
Well, the credit card company. You know, and as long as I refute that charge in a timely fashion, I'm good. Was there a question in the back?
Yeah, excuse me. I'm not sure, but I heard that any card that you can swipe can be compromised. It's better to use the chip, but we all know that even with the chip, with your PIN,
Yeah, so the question revolves around any card that can be swiped can be compromised. So just in the past 2 weeks, I've been on Channel 5 with Mary Saladna and on Fox 25 with John Moynihan, just in the past 2 weeks, because Roach Brothers had point of sales compromised at their supermarkets, and Walmart had 19 stores in the Northeast, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Vermont, Rhode Island, 19 stores compromised at the point of sales. And I think it was a Romanian that came in through Canada here illegally that was installing point of sales at all these machines. This guy got 27,000 credit cards. 27,000. So they called me and said, hey, what do you do? Here's the deal with point of sale skimming. Point of sale is like when you walk up to the register and you swipe your card or insert your card or wave your card. That's a point of sale, that little box, that little credit card charging machine. ATM skimming, of course, is at the ATM. They work similar in nature, okay? So here's the deal. All of our credit cards at this point have a chip. And if you can insert that card, that's always the best thing. Okay, so always insert the card opposed to swipe the card. When you swipe the card, you're swiping the magnetic stripe. And when you swipe it, if there's a skimming device on the machine, when you swipe it, it reads the data on the there's actually data on the magnetic stripe. And it reads that data, and it copies that data. And then they take that data and they burn it onto a blank ATM card. And usually that same scam, if you punch in your PIN code, it also grabs your PIN as well. And so they can burn it onto a blank card and take the maximum dollar amount out of your bank account, generally either before or after midnight, and they do it again the next day. Okay? So I always insert that card opposed to swipe. Or if you have the ability to wave the card, if it's wireless, they call it radio frequency identification technology. If you can tap to pay or wave to pay, do that as well. Wirelessly or insert the card is always better than swipe the card. And again, I don't use a debit card at all, ever. I just use a credit card and I either insert it or I tap it.
How do you avoid interest rates for that?
So how do you avoid interest rates with that? I just pay my credit cards off at the full balance every month.
But they still charge an interest rate.
You don't get charged a penny if you pay off your credit card in full every month. You don't get charged a penny if you pay a credit card off in full every month. I promise you. If you have a balance, if you pay the minimum balance, let's say you owe $1,000 and you pay $500, you're going to pay the APR on the $500 that's left over. But if you pay the...
I thought they charged interest.
No, they don't charge anything. Nope. As long as if you charge $1,000 and you pay $1,000 off at the end of the billing cycle, you don't pay anything.
Okay.
For me, my credit cards, the only thing I pay is the actual credit card fee every year. Because most of my cards have fees because I have other perks with those cards. That's why I have fees. Yeah?
I noticed I went food shopping last night, and unfortunately I do use my debit card.
Yeah.
But it won't take it if I swipe, so I was forced to insert.
You were forced to insert the card. Good. That's what you want to do.
Swipe first, just by mistake.
Yeah, try to avoid the swiping. It'll still read the swipe.
It didn't though.
Sometimes.
Maybe I did it too quick or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Question?
Yes, if you have a credit card attached to your debit card through the bank,
Yeah.
are you still covered if you use the credit, or is that?
If the credit card is attached to the debit card, are you still covered? So, if you have to enter a PIN code, I think that means you're using your debit card. Correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't used one in so long. If you're entering your PIN code, then you're using the actual debit card. If you're inserting it and you know it's coming out of the credit card aspect versus the actual checking account aspect, then it's fine as a credit card. But if you insert it or swipe it or tap it and it's coming out of your actual checking account, your bank balance, well, then it's being used as a debit card. For me, I don't like that.
Even if you put credit, even if you.
Oh, I see. You have the ability to check debit or
You
credit.
can say debit or credit.
Then if you're selecting credit, fine. But if that same card is compromised, and they can choose debit, now there's money coming out of your actual bank balance. Now you can bounce checks. Now you've got to hem and haw and say, hey, what's going on? Like, to me, there's just a lot going on there. It's a personal choice in the end for you. For me, there's a little bit of risk there that I don't like. I don't like an account that somebody can take money out of my bank account. Question?
I don't use a debit card, but in the past I have. And when they ask, when you're checking out, they'll ask you debit or credit. I never understood how can it be either one? Is it the way that it's processed?
It's the way that it's processed. It's the. Well, I believe the bank has the ability you have like overdraft protection, and that overdraft protection might be the credit aspect, or there might be a subsection of your account that it comes out as credit, that you'd get an actual, if you didn't pay it off right away, then the bank could actually charge you interest.
This is on a debit card.
No, it's not a debit, it's weird. They show it as, they act like it's your debit, you could run it as a credit or a debit. I was never sure if the store makes out on that end, how they run it as a debit or a credit.
Yeah.
I'm talking about on a debit card.
But it still comes out of your checking.
It still comes out of your checking even if you do it as credit?
Credit, it
Yeah.
still comes out of your checking.
Okay, well then,
Yeah, I don't know what the exact difference is.
I would ask your bank. I would ask your bank. I am obviously not qualified to answer that question.
Oh, that's right, I think when you do it as a credit, there's a hold on it as opposed to, a-
If you do it as credit, to be a hold on it,
like it's a little bit longer, whereas the debit automatically.
comes out of your bank account.
They don't
If you
know the
look on-
balance. They're not
If you look
verified.
on your statement, you'd see something pending.
Gotcha.
It shows as pending on, if you pulled up your
That's-
checking account.
That's how my credit union works.
Yeah.
If you do credit, they take it out at the end of the month. If you do debit, they take it out instantly.
Okay,
Well,
all
these
right.
banks won't make them wait a month, but it could be like 2 days,
Yeah.
you'll see it as
No,
a
mine's a
pending
month.
item. Oh, that's
30
good.
days.
That's really good.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Okay, I'm one of these that uses, the debit card only at supermarkets.
Yeah.
So would it be safer for me to just have a designated credit card and use that at the supermarket?
The question is, she uses her debit card only at the supermarket. Would it be safer to use a designated credit card at the supermarket? Yes. The less you use a debit card, the better. And I'm pretty sure that, like, if there was bank representatives here, they would probably disagree with that a little bit. Like, they want you to use the debit card. They want you to rely on them. There's nothing wrong with that, but there are inherent risks with using a debit card that if the money is withdrawn without your authorization, if there's a PIN involved, federal law says that you have less rights under what's called Regulation E. Regulation E states that you have 2 business days to refute unauthorized transactions on a debit card. 2 business days through Regulation E on a debit card. 60 days on a credit card if there's unauthorized charges. To me, 58-day difference, I'm all about the credit card. It's their money that the bad guys are playing with, not mine.
I went to secure a presentation similar to yours a couple of years ago with Frank Abagnale. Is that how you say his last name?
Don't know him.
And, well, the Catch Me If They Can movie guy.
Oh, Abagnale.
Abagnale.
Yeah.
Okay, and he said, always use the credit.
Always use the credit card, yeah. And he's a thief, so he knows. Yeah.
That's exactly the point,
Yeah.
I'm someone that's still using my credit card, but on the bank, the mobile app, when it was set up to have those push alerts. So for instance, I went food shopping last night, and like by the time I got to my car, I got a text that.
Yeah, those push alerts are great. I love them. Okay? All right, where we at? All right, good. Okay, so an astonishing 773 million records exposed in a monster breach, including, and it says it right here on the screen, check this out, over 21 million unique passwords posted to a hacking forum. Think about that now. This particular data breach shows 21 million passwords exposed on the dark web. Now, you look at that and you go, oh, those poor 21 million people. I am part of those 21 million people. You are part of those 21 million people. We are all those 21 million people. That is everybody. When I exposed the slide earlier that showed 100 and something, 50 million-ish records exposed by the end of 2023, that's all of our information, including passcodes. Now, show of hands, honestly. How many of you can honestly say, I pretty much use a different passcode for every single account? That's maybe half of you. That's actually pretty good. So then half of you are using probably the same or very close to the same passcode for each account. That's a problem, you know? If you're using the same passcode across each account, and like almost half of you are, I'm going to show you some stuff that's going to kind of alarm you a little bit, okay? So first, right here, right, and I'm going to ask the cameraman not to show the screen, okay? Because I'm going to show the audience here something, but don't show this on the screen because this is sensitive information. So what you see right here is a folder on my machine of those 21 million credentials that I downloaded from the dark web. I went to the dark web, I found those files, okay? So what you see here, you see 1.5 M combo. That's 1.5 million email addresses and their passcodes. You see 1.25 M combo. You see 1 million combo, 1 million combo, 1 million combo, 2.8 million combined combos. You see 4,000 valid combos for Netflix, Amazon, Disney, HBO, and DirecTV. You see 5 million combos from a guy that calls himself Stinky Bathwater, okay? And what this is are text files of millions and millions and millions of stolen credentials, okay? So right here, I'm going to open up a file for 1.5 million combos. So what you see here, this is actual email addresses and their combined passcodes. You see Andre Rigby at Gmail, and there's his passcode. You see Tyler Perrin at Gmail, and there's his passcode. Define P at Gmail, and there's her passcode, and so on. Raw data taken from the dark web.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yeah?
Did you have to pay for that?
I didn't have to pay for it. It was free. I just downloaded it. There are billions of stolen records floating around. Okay, and anybody has access to it. You have access to it. I have access to it. So if you are using the same passcode across all your accounts, and you know, there's 150 billion records exposed. If you're using the same passcode for all of your accounts are compromised. All of your accounts are exposed. The data is out there.
Okay, so here's my question. There's so many freaking accounts out there that you gotta set up.
Yeah.
You need so many passwords.
Yeah.
Where do I keep them to keep them?
Okay, so the question is, with all these accounts,
I do write them down.
how do I manage all of my passcodes? I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I know somebody knows the answer. If you have 100 different accounts, if you have 50 different accounts, if you have 25 different accounts, what's the best way to manage all your passwords?
I write them down. Yeah.
Write them down? Okay, that's one way.
That's proof.
What's a better way?
Take a picture of that
Password manager. Password manager. So some people are afraid of password managers. Okay, so here's the deal, right? And I understand why you might be afraid of a password manager. There have been some vulnerabilities with password managers. Password managers have been hacked, but none of them have been hacked in such a way where all of our data was exposed. None of them, okay? The password managers are security companies. And even if any of their data was hacked, it was encrypted. So they couldn't get access to the actual raw data. the low-hanging fruit is not hacking a password manager. The low-hanging fruit is going to the dark web and downloading millions to billions of records. The information is out there. The passwords are out there because they've been hacked.
Mine is there.
Okay, so the question is yours there, right? Well, I have a tool. Let me show you something, okay? And check this out, right? Watch this. We're going to go to my website, and you can show this on the screen if you want. We're going to go to my website, and we're going to search on, my website is called, hold on 1 second. It is protectnowllc.com. So if you go to protectnowllc.com, right, you get to my homepage, you see a video on the upper right, you see my stupid face, you scroll down, and you see Cyber Security Awareness Check. You see, has your personal or organizational security been breached? Get an instant answer. You see, check if your email has been breached. We click on Email Checker, okay? So now watch this now. Email Checker is a tool that we have installed on our website that allows you to search 13 billion stolen records that have been downloaded from the dark web. Okay? So, 13 out of those 150 billion stolen records or compromised records, we have access to 13 billion of them, which allows you to search your email addresses and potentially, if you wanted, your passwords. Okay? So right here, I search, check if your email has been breached. And I plug in my email address, my Gmail address, and I click search. And it says your email and possibly your password have been stolen on the following breaches. So here it says in July of 2018, a sales engagement site called Apollo had 126 million email addresses and passwords compromised. In 2014, a Bitcoin forum, which I'm on, had 5 million email addresses and passcodes. Bitly had 9.3 million email addresses and passcodes. Cafe Mom, 2.6 million. And then what else? I see, oh, look at this one. In January of 2019, 773 million records were compromised, including 21 million passcodes. I showed you that slide earlier. My email address is part of that particular breach. Okay? As I scroll down, we see Cove, Dailymotion, Discus, Dropbox, Epic, Fotolog, Forbes, Gravatar, Last.fm, LinkedIn in 2016, 164 million email addresses and their passcodes. So all of these data breaches that I just read off to you, my email address as a username was hacked. I didn't do anything wrong. These companies got hacked. My information was exposed. Okay? And in the majority of them, it wasn't just my email address, it was the passcode to log in to LinkedIn, the passcode to log into Cafe Mom, and so forth. Okay? Hold on 1 second. And so, for me, I've got to go to each of those accounts and change the passcodes, which is fine. But the problem for some of you is that if your username and passcode is compromised, and if you're using the same passcode for all of your accounts, it's exposed. The bad guys have access to it. And they just log in to your email. They just log in to your Hotmail or your Gmail, to your AOL, to your Visa, MasterCard, American Express, to your eBay, to your PayPal, to your everything. If you're using the same passcode across multiple accounts, that is the worst thing you can do to protect your identity. You're just putting every one of your accounts at risk. There's a question over here?
So, well, here's a question. You know how you save your passwords on the computer?
Yeah.
Don't know, or what?
So the question is, do you save your passcodes on the computer? What that question infers is that when a website asks you, do you want this website to remember your passcode? I don't do that.
Not the website, but it's...
Like your browser, the browser?
Yeah.
So I don't allow my browser to remember my passcodes. And the reason why
We enter them in every time.
well, I do enter them in every time, yeah. Now, there are certain websites that I don't have to enter them in every time. So for example, I don't enter my Gmail password in every time, but after a month, it expires, and I have to re-enter it and also respond with two-factor authentication after a month. Okay? Now, if you try to log into my Gmail from your computer, and you have my passcode, two-factor authentication is going to kick in, and I'm going to get a one-time text message that you're not going to get. So you can't log into my email. Okay, so I have two-factor authentication on all of my critical accounts, which I'll show you how to set that up in a minute, including for email. Okay, so now, question over here?
Should you change your password?
Question is, should you change your passcodes? The only time I ever change, now I have a different passcode across all my accounts. So the only time I ever change my passcodes is if a particular company's website is breached, then I'll change my passcodes. Now the rule of thumb for government agencies and large corporations, they change passcodes as often as every 2 to 3 months. Now I understand why, because people are really bad at password management. But the problem with changing your passcodes every 2 to 3 months is that it's cumbersome. And if security is difficult for people, they're not going to do it. Right? They're just not. You know? And so changing a passcode every 2 to 3 months, I think that's a lot to ask of people. Okay? So I don't change my passcodes every 2 to 3 months. And there are people out there that are going to vehemently disagree with me. I only change it if there's a particular data breach on a particular website. My passcodes are uppercase, lowercase, numbers, characters. Like, I don't know my passwords. My password manager knows my passwords. My password manager remembers my passwords. And my password manager enters my passwords in the various websites that I visit on a regular basis. Okay? So, the other question was, do I have to enter the passcodes every single time I visit the website? Not for Gmail, excuse me, not for Amazon, because I'm on Amazon too much. But beyond that, like if I clear out the cache on my browser, yeah, I'm going to have to re-enter my Gmail passcode that day, my Amazon passcode that day. But I'm in Amazon a lot. It's a problem. Otherwise, I go to PayPal, I got to enter my passcode and two-factor authentication. I go to eBay, I've got to enter my passcode and two-factor authentication. All my various commerce sites that I go to infrequently, I have to enter my passcode and my two-factor authentication every time I go there.
So you log into your, you log into your password manager so say you go to a website you hardly ever go to.
Yeah.
And you want to go on it. You don't know your password.
Yeah, I
log into your password manager.
Correct. So she surmised that every time I want to visit a particular website, I'm going to my password manager first. I'm scrolling to Bank of America, and through my password manager, it's taking me to bankofamerica.com on my browser. It's pulling up the login window. It's plugging in my username. It's plugging in my passcode.
Okay, so it takes you. So it has the website. All right.
Yeah, it takes me right there. My password manager is by far the best use of my time and my money when it comes to my security. Okay?
How much does it cost?
How much does it cost? Password managers are anywhere from free to a small fee. I spend $20 a year on my password manager, and it gets me like unlimited websites, you know? There's a bunch of password managers out there, and I'll show you what they look like. But let me show you a couple of things first. Okay, so let's, while we're here, all right, because you had asked me, okay, so I have your email. We're going to click search. Okay, is that right? It's yeah, got it. Okay, we'll do a quick search. Okay, so it's saying your email and possibly your password have been stolen on the following breaches. Okay? Now, this is not because you did anything wrong. This is because these companies were hacked. So Exactus, in June of 2018, 132 million email addresses and exposed passcodes. House, in mid-2018, 49 million email addresses and their passcodes. So you have a House account, okay? And in your House account, Houzz, whatever your password is for your House account is in the hands of criminals. Now, if you know your House password,
I didn't even know I had the account.
okay, if your House password is the same password as your bank account, eBay, PayPal, email, right? All those accounts are vulnerable. You see how that works? That's why you never use the same passcode twice. Make sense? Yeah. This beginning to add up now? All right. Also, Checkmate had a data breach in 2003, 12 million email addresses and passcodes. MyHeritage had a data breach in 2017, 92 million records and passcodes. So Twitter, 2023, Verifications.io, White Pages, you're not much different than me. You got a lot of different accounts, okay? The key here is using a different passcode across multiple accounts, setting up a password manager, and the password manager walks you through the process, okay? So let me show you a couple things now. So as far as what password manager do you use? I do a Google search on password manager, I hit enter. And there's a bunch of articles that pop up, right? Wired Magazine, CNET, and right here is an article from PC Magazine. And PC Magazine has the best password managers for 2024. I click on that, I open that up. And right here, we see 1Password, number 1 password. We see NordPass, we see Dashlane, we see RoboForm, we see Keeper, we see LogMeOnce, Bitwarden, right? So these are a bunch of different password managers. And PC Magazine has done all the research to determine what are the best ones. I use one called RoboForm. I've been using RoboForm since 2004, 20 years. I've been using this password manager. Right? I've got hundreds and hundreds of passwords. I know my Gmail passcode, my Apple passcode, and I know the passcode to my password manager. That's it. I know 3 passwords. My 55-year-old brain can't handle much more than that at this point, okay? Now, like you, I have a mobile phone, right? I don't know my mother's phone number. I don't know my father's phone number. If I want to call my mother, I go to Mom. If I want to call my father, I go to Bob, because I call him Bob. But I never committed their phone number to memory. The only phone number that I know is my wife's phone number, because I met her in a bar and I wanted to remember that girl's phone number. That's the only phone number I know, and I'm not even kidding, okay? So the same way your mobile phone remembers your phone number, your password manager remembers your passcodes. And through your password manager, you go to all the various websites you want to go through, it plugs in the username, it plugs in the passcode, and you're good. And it'll create strong passwords for you. So if we pull up my password manager, it creates passwords too. So right here, I click on password generator, right? When I click on password generator, it generated a passcode, uppercase B, lowercase f, uppercase B, lowercase c, uppercase W, 5T, lowercase j, A, uppercase H. I will never remember that passcode. And you don't want to type it either. Exactly, you don't want to type it either, but you don't need to type it. You don't need to remember it. Your password manager generates it. And so let's just say I'm going to change the passcode on my AT&T account. So from my password manager, I'll go to AT&T, I'll log in, I'll go to the security settings, the password settings within AT&T, I'll generate a new passcode, I'll plug in the new passcode in AT&T, and as I do that, the password manager will say to me, do you want to remember this new passcode for AT&T? Yes, exactly, that's exactly what I want to do, Okay? So from that point on, my password manager will plug in a new passcode every time I visit AT&T.
Yeah, that's the
What was
question,
the
is it every single time?
It does it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Question?
What's the one that you use?
I use one called RoboForm.
Robophone?
Yeah, RoboForm. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, so, my iPhone has passwords, you know, I have to log in.
So I believe that's called KeyPass. What is iPhone? What is Apple's password manager? So Apple Password Manager. Because I don't use it. It's called. There's a name for it. I forget it. Others will know. The reason why I don't is Apple the only device you use?
Well, I have an iPad. But
You have an iPad too? So if it's an iDevice. So if all you use is Apple devices and you want to use the Apple proprietary password manager, that's fine. My dad does that.
But what do you think about the Google password manager?
So the reason why I don't use the Apple one and the reason why I don't use the Google one, the reason why I use an actual password manager is because I have probably 18 different devices. And I have Windows machines, I have Macs, I have iDevices, I have Androids. So I'm working across Chrome browser, Safari browser, Edge, which is Microsoft. I'm working on different types of browsers, different types of operating systems, different types of devices. So I need a password manager that will work across all the different operating systems and browsers and such.
That's not a problem for me, you know.
If you're only using 2 devices, then the Apple password manager is fine.
I'm saying my laptop is not an Apple.
So if
And I'm using the Google password manager on.
Gotcha. If you're using the Google Password Manager on both your iPhone and your iPad and your laptop,
No, the laptop is not Apple.
but it's Google. Yeah. So look that's why I don't.
Reason not to trust it.
So you can trust the Google Password Manager. It's Google's not in the business of password management, whereas a password manager is. You know, their job is to create long and strong passcodes. Google's password manager doesn't create long and strong.
It creates very long, very complicated passwords.
Yeah, see, I'm unfamiliar with that. My apologies, because I don't, you know, if it's working for you, use it. You know, that's really what it boils down to. If it's working for you, use it. You know, no sense in changing it up. Don't fix it if it's not broken. I'm using RoboForm and a password manager that works across operating systems, browsers, and devices. Okay? Yeah, in the back?
Yes, when you go to Robo, when you go to one of your accounts, do you go through Robo?
Yeah. So if I pull up my password manager right now, and I go to USPS, right? Well, that didn't work. Hold on. If I go to, I don't know, Delta, right? You know what? I think I'm having an internet issue. Oh, there you go. Hold on. So I go to Delta, right? And as soon as I pull up Delta, it's just slow internet here, okay? And it's logging me in. It's just logging me in. All I did was pull up Delta, and I'm logged into Delta, just like that.
Through Robo.
Through RoboForm, yeah. Just clicking on Delta in RoboForm, I'm done.
No, you click on Robo first, then you go to Delta. That's what I'm trying to. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So the password manager shows up as an icon in my browser. You know how at the top of your browser you have all kinds of icons? It shows up as an icon in the top of my browser. And I click on that icon and I can type in DE for Delta, or I can, hit logins and all my passwords just show up. I'll show you an example of what that might look like. So like A to Z, like right there is like 1000bulbs.com, and you just keep scrolling down. There's American Airlines, there's AAA, there's, so it starts off at A. There's abc.com, and there's Adobe, and it just keeps going. I can type in Z, and it'll go right to Z, right? And there's Zappos, right? So that's how it works.
So you're in your password manager?
I'm in my password manager, and I can go to Zoom, and I can click on Zoom, and it'll log me into Zoom. You know, it's nice.
Yeah, I assume your computer is up to date and if it's,
So the question is my computer up to date? So my operating system is updated to the latest version. I think it's like, I'm on a Mac right now. Is it Monterey? Is it Ventura? I forget, but I know I'm on the latest one, right? Because I update automatically, and I check it every once in a while as well. And my browser is updated automatically as well. You know, so I know that my browser, my operating system, all my software is all updated. So as long as you do all those basic things, your device should be pretty tight. You know, my password manager is also updated. All my apps are updated. Those are like the basic things. If you do all these basic things, you become a tougher target. Making sense? Yes, Ruth.
Okay, I do program manager, but I will not put my bank accounts in my number.
What was the question now?
I'm a good practice. All my accounts have the program manager.
Okay.
Automatic.
Okay.
But not my bank accounts.
So
I keep them as a notebook at home, and I use my loan. I'll never give it to them.
So for some of you who write down your passcodes, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that's fine. You know, like if you have your passcodes in an Excel file that you printed out, that's fine too. You know, just make sure that those passwords that are written down somewhere are written down so that A, you know where they are, B, like they're organized properly, C, they're protected, meaning like, you know, they're locked up. Like, if you're going to put them on paper, they should probably be, if they're only on paper, they should probably be duplicated and put in a fireproof safe. When you think about it, if like something happens to your house, right? Or at a minimum, a locking filing cabinet. Like, just think like if somebody was to break into your house, would they have access to a sheet of paper that's sitting on your desk with all your passcodes? Is that a thing? You know, is that a consideration? It should be a consideration. You know, if you have a cleaning company that comes into your house, do they have access to all your passcodes? You know, it's just, these are things you should think about, you know. I think it's a good idea to have them in an Excel file and have that Excel file printed out, put it in a filing cabinet, put it into a fireproof safe. I also think it's a good idea that somebody in your life have access to your passcodes. Whoever is like the executor or executress of your will, you know, like for me, I have all that stuff like in an Excel file. My dad has access to it. My wife, my kids have access to it. Something happens to me, all my critical accounts are accessible in my password manager and an Excel file. You know, because when I'm gone, somebody's going to have access to my accounts. You know, yeah.
Okay, so I use my computer. I have a PC, but I do most of my stuff on my phone. So if I do a password or
password manager in your phone,
yeah. Would they be like in a cloud so that I could get it on both?
Very good insight. So my password manager is on this machine right here that's sitting in front of me. The same password manager is on this phone that's right here. The same password manager is on my iPad. It's also on my wife's computer and her phone. Both of my daughter's computers and their phones, okay? And a few of the other laptops I have at home as well. So I have the same password manager across operating systems and across browsers and devices. And so if I change the passcode right now for Delta, right now, if I change that passcode, it's going to shoot up to the cloud, to the password manager in the cloud, which is basically servers in a climate-controlled secure room is what that is. The cloud is a climate-controlled secure facility is what that is. It's not the cloud, you know. And it'll update in the cloud on their servers and then shoot down to all my other devices and let all my other devices know that the Delta passcode has changed.
So do you have to download them separately into each machine?
Yeah, you have to download the password manager separately into each machine. So when you initially set it up, the password manager or the device itself, you know, like one of my daughters is going off to college in September. We'll be getting her a new laptop over the summer because her old high school laptop isn't going to work like we want it to. So I'll work with her to set up her machine to reflect the password manager that she's enjoyed on her older laptop with the same account and all the same passcodes, you know? And the password manager also has two-factor authentication. So if a laptop gets stolen, right, the password manager requires a passcode, and then it times out after 20 minutes. And if the laptop gets stolen, if they don't, if for whatever reason, you know, they're going to have a hard time getting in. Okay? Now, as far as two-factor authentication goes, how do you set that up? Well, first of all, Google it. Okay? So I Google just 3 words: Gmail two-factor. I search Gmail two-factor, and what pops up on the first page of search? Sign into Google accounts. How do I turn on two-step verification for Gmail? Turn on two-step verification, and it tells you exactly how to go about it, right? Protecting your personal info with two-step verification, how two-step verification works. There's a half a dozen sites that pop up for Google on the very first page of search on how to set up two-factor authentication for Gmail. Easy, okay? You do the same thing for, say, I don't know, AOL. And if you use AOL for email, you're adorable, but you still need two-factor authentication, okay? So right here I search AOL two-factor, and at the first page it says, at help.aol.com, add or disable two-step verification for extra security, and it shows you exactly how to go about doing it. Okay, so you can do the same thing for, I don't know, Comcast. All right, Comcast two-factor, right? Two-step verification for signing in and Xfinity app set up at xfinity.com/support. Okay, so all of your critical accounts, eBay, you know, Amazon, PayPal, P-A-Y, PayPal, two-factor authentication, right? There it is. What is two-step verification and how do I turn it on or off at paypal.com/two-step? Okay? So I set up two-factor authentication for all my critical accounts. Why? Because with 150 billion stolen records and tens and tens and tens of millions to billions of passcodes being compromised, the best way to make, even if they do have my username and my passcode, and I have multiple passcodes, but even if they have my passcode, they can't get in to my account if two-factor authentication is set up. Why? Because they would have to have my phone in their possession in order to log in. Does that make sense? Because the phone is where you get that second factor via text. And sometimes they send it in via email. All right? Question, yeah?
Say, I've had AOL.
Yeah.
I haven't used it for years. If I got a manager, could they pull up the old password?
So if you have if you haven't used AOL for years and you set up a password manager, what was the question now?
If it could pull out the AOL password that I had used.
Oh, I see. No, the password manager, when you set up your password manager, it's not going to know. If you've never accessed AOL from your newly set up password manager, it's not going to know your AOL password manager from the past. If you need to determine what your AOL password is, go to the forgot password setting or feature within the login settings. Does that make sense? Yeah. And if you're not using it at this point, I mean, if it's been years since you accessed it, it may not even matter, you know. But the forgot password feature at the login is how you begin to gain access to old passcodes. Okay? All right, so let's just talk about long and strong passwords. And we've talked a lot about password management. But people say, like, you know, how do you set up like the best password? Well, I just generate passwords, you know. Like, I don't use kids' names. I don't use birth dates. I don't use pets' names. I use the password manager to manage my passwords and to create passwords. And I told you what, you know, a strong password looks like. I generated a passcode and read it out to you, and it's a ridiculous one that I already forgot, right? Well, this tool that we have on our website, we have access to 13 billion compromised records. So right here, we have the ability to not only search usernames in the form of email addresses, we can also search passwords, okay? So right here, I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as a password. So out of 13 billion records, 13 billion compromised records, 42,542,807 people are using 1 through 6 as a passcode. Kind of dumb, right? Right? Add a number 7 to that, and it goes down to 4,351,000 people are using 1 through 7. Hold on, I'll get there. 1 through 8 is being used 6,901,000. Okay? We can do, I don't know, PASSWORD password as a password. And that's being used 10,382,000 times. Let's add number 1 to that because it's wicked secure, right? 3,327,000 people are using password 1. And just for the heck of it, let's change the P to uppercase password 1. That's being used, 315,726 times. And I always think this one's really funny. ILOVESEX is being used by 32,556 people. Love sex as their passcode. Kind of silly when you think about it. You know? That's how lame our passwords are. Easy to guess, easy to hack, easy to crack. And you wonder why there's been 150 billion records compromised. And it's often due to poor password management. So if you get anything out of our time together today, one of the main things is, use a different passcode across all your accounts. If you're going to write them down, fine. I'll give you that. If you can use a password manager, please do, okay? And use the password manager to set up all of your strong passwords. Never use the same passcode twice. And just take your time with it. One website at a time. Yeah, in the back?
So I have a question. I go on a website, the state thing, because I volunteer for DSS once a month. So because it's a state site, every 3 months I have to come up with a new password.
Yep.
It has to be a strong password.
Yep.
Will the password manager, when it tells me it expires, generate a new one automatically, or what?
So as far as generating, being required to change your passcodes and then generating new passcodes, so when the government site says, okay, it's time to change your passcode, then just go to the password generator, generate a new passcode, paste that into the government website, and now you've got just cut and paste. And then have the password manager remember the new passcode going forward. Okay. It's just so simple. It's just so easy. It's just so convenient. Yeah?
Me? Oh.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. You talk about government sites. That's where my data breach came from. I worked for 25 years for a state college that they're so careful with all the student records under FERPA and all these other laws. They gave out all my information.
Yeah, we've all been affected by that. Ruth, do you have a question?
I just want to say a password that I would use always is first letter of a sentence.
First letter of a sentence.
As long as it doesn't make a word.
Gotcha, yeah. And if you have a system for remembering passcodes and changing passcodes, fine. As long as each of the sites that you visit is a different one. You don't have to use a password manager. It's just the best tool there is. Like I said, I don't know my mobile phone numbers, right? But I know how to access them, and this is easy. And the password manager has that level of simplicity to it once you get used to it, okay? All right, so.
Has it ever not been available, the system down?
I've never not been able to use my password manager in the 20 years that I've had it. It's always been reliable for me. Okay? All right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so password managers, two-step verification. So we all clear on two-step verification? Okay? All right, so passwords are compromised because of social engineering. Social engineering is when you get fake text messages, phishing emails, Excuse me. Social engineering is the modern day scam. We'll talk about that in a minute. phishing. Passwords are compromised because of phishing. Password reuse, we talked about that. You can't reuse passcodes. We know that now. Insecure weak passcodes. What is an insecure or weak passcode? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, password, and so forth, right? So we talked about using password managers. We talked about two-step verification. And then there's no passwords. What does that mean? It means that I'm pretty confident there's people in this room today that have devices in your possession and maybe at home that don't have passwords on them. Okay, so you might have a mobile phone in your possession right now that doesn't have a passcode on it. And my question to you is, if your phone is lost or worse, stolen, and it doesn't have a passcode on it, what does the bad guy have access to?
Everybody's phone numbers.
Everything. Your contacts, your email, your apps, your everything. Okay? So not password protecting your digital devices, I think, is hazardous. Now you say, well, why do I have to password protect a laptop or a desktop or a tablet I have at home? It just stays at home. Well, what if your house is broken into and that tablet is stolen or that laptop is stolen? What might they have access to? In some cases, it could be a lot of stuff. So even at home, I think it's very important that you password protect everything. Make sense? Okay? Additionally, check this out, right? So this is interesting. I got this instant message from a woman that I'm connected to on Facebook. She's apparently my friend. And she said, "Hi, Rob. I'm not sure if you saw what happened to my Facebook page last night, but someone stole my cell phone while I was at a concert and posted all of my naked pictures to my phone and posted them onto my Facebook wall. They were up there for hours. Is there any way you can help me find out who it was?" I received this instant message from this woman. I'm looking at this. I'm going, there's so much wrong with what's going on in this message. For example, how many is all of my naked pictures? And apparently that's a thing, right? So after I got this message, I was working with McAfee Antivirus, and we did a study around Valentine's Day based on this message. And the study was called Love, Relationships, and Technology. We wanted to understand the intersection between love and relationships and technology. So we asked 2,000 people in a Harris poll questions like, do you share your passwords with your significant other? Do you send sexy text messages or naked pictures to your significant other, and so forth? Okay? We got all the results back, and some of the results were surprising and some of them weren't. So for example, we kind of knew that those ages 18 to 25, they send a lot of sexy text messages, okay? But we kind of got some surprising information. Do you know who sends the most amount of sexts? Take a guess.
Seniors.
Take a guess. 50 to 75-year-olds. Yes. So I ask you to please password protect your devices. Okay? We know who you are.
Isn't that Al?
It could be somebody you know, I don't know. Okay? All right. Okay. It does look like you, actually. All right. Let's talk about a little bit about email security. So email security is, your username is your email address, your passcode is whatever your passcode is that you want to make sure is different than all your other passcodes. And with all email, you want to set up two-factor authentication. So I think we answered that question on how you set up two-factor authentication with email, correct? Google it, right? Now, within your email, there's one particular setting that I want you to be aware of. So whether it's AOL or Gmail or Yahoo or Hotmail or pretty much anything, in your settings menu, if you go to, and I'm going to pull up my Gmail really quick. I go to Gmail, and right here I go to this little gear icon. See the little gear icon that I'm circling right there in Gmail? I click on that, and I go to my See All Settings menu, okay? And I click on See All Settings. Okay, so right here, you see General and Labels and Inbox and Accounts and Filters and Forwarding. You click on Forwarding, okay? So, forwarding, right? Email forwarding. So all email, or most email has automatic email forwarding, where you can automatically forward incoming email to anywhere. It's a pretty cool feature, right? I think we all at this point know how to forward an email. This is different. This is automatic email forwarding set up in your settings menu, which means, like for example here, if you look up on the screen, you see right here it says disable forwarding, and it's checked, okay? Underneath that is forward a copy of incoming mail to, and it's unchecked. Now, right here, if I wanted to, I could forward an incoming email to anybody that I wanted. I could just plug in their email address in there, and they would automatically get all my incoming email to their inbox too. Now this particular feature, what's nice about it is, for example, if you have an old AOL account, okay, you can automatically forward all of your old AOL emails to your Gmail account, which is kind of nice. So you don't have to log into AOL ever again. You could just receive all those communications forwarded automatically into your Gmail inbox. And if you wanted to, you could set up a filter within Gmail so all your AOLs go into one particular folder. Kind of nice, right? It's a nice feature that all the email providers, web-based email providers, provide their client base. The problem with this forwarding feature is A, if you've never seen it, if you've never been in there, if you've never looked at it, it's possible that if your email was ever compromised, hacked, messed with, somebody in your life accessed your email, they could plug in their own email address into the automatic email forwarding settings and be getting your email in perpetuity. Does that make sense? So I did a presentation to real estate agents, and which I do a lot actually, and I showed them this feature. And one of the real estate agents on her laptop during the presentation queued up her email forwarding in her Gmail and come up to me at the break and showed to me there was an email address in the automatic email forwarding of a guy she had dated 3 years earlier, and they had a bad breakup, and she had to get a restraining order against the guy. He was getting her email for over 3 years, and she had no idea. Okay? So at some point, go into your dashboard, go into your settings, tool around and find email forwarding, and make sure it's clean. Make sense?
So you can get in there and delete.
So you can get in there and turn it off. Yeah, if that ever happened. And then make sure you change your passcode and have two-factor authentication. So chances of that happening to you is slim, but it's possible, So for this girl, for this woman, the real estate agent, chances are this guy, being apparently a bit of obsessive, logged into her computer one morning while he stayed over or something, went into her email while she was sleeping, while she wasn't paying attention, and plugged in his email address into her forwarding. And she had no idea, and never checked that setting, never even thought to check that setting. Why would she unless she knew about it?
So he could check and see if any other.
So check out that automatic forward setting in your email program, okay? And if you don't know if you have it, right, one of the things you can do, Google it, right? So if you search on Google, for example, Gmail auto forward, right? Gmail auto forward, and right here you see Google Help, support.google.com, automatically forward Gmail messages to another account.
Could you check it for other accounts?
Do this for AOL. AOL, just Google it, AOL auto forward, there it is right there. To set up automatic forwarding in AOL mail. It's right there. Okay, so for anything, just Google it. All right, yep.
I have a Gmail address and a Comcast address.
Yep.
I never look at my Gmail because I don't use LinkedIn anymore.
Yep.
So I think I have it forwarding, anything that goes to my Gmail, I have it forwarded to my...
Forward it to your Comcast. Yeah, I would log into your Gmail to see that, You know, if you've done that in the past. If you're already getting all of your Gmails into your Comcast, great, you know. But yeah, that's how that works. Yeah, that's exactly how that works. All right, so let me see what else we have here. Let me see. So, okay, so let's just talk about scam. Well, we talked about scams a bit earlier. Let me just read a couple things to you, just kind of like, you know, solidify a few things. So social engineering is a collection of techniques used to manipulate people. Okay? Social engineering is a collection of techniques used to manipulate people into performing actions or divulging confidential information over the phone, via email, via text. It is basically a confidence trick, okay? Or simple fraud. The term typically applies to trickery for information gathering or computer system access. In most cases, the attacker never comes face to face with the victim. They say that there is no patch for human gullibility. You can't fix gullible, okay? And I said to you earlier, P.T. Barnum said, you know, there's a sucker born every minute. And I believe every one of us are born suckers. It doesn't mean you're a sucker. It means we can be suckered, basically, because we trust by default. And because we trust by default, it means we really want to. We really need to trust. You know? We wouldn't function. Heck, you could not get in a car and drive unless you trusted that most people are going to be responsible that day. You know what I mean? Right? I mean, think about it. Because getting in a car is pretty dangerous. But you just trust that everybody's going to be responsible. Okay? And it's the same thing, you know, when it comes to your personal security, right? So, via email, via telephone, via text, they're going to lie. You're going to lose access to your account. You're going to win money. You know, they utilize loss, gain, fear, greed, romance, like anything that gets your blood pumping, you know. They pose as you, they pose as a spouse, they pose as a bill collector, a bank, a utility, a government agency, fellow employee, coworker, friend, and so on. Right? So we talked about, you know, don't just automatically trust inbound communications. Okay? Now check this out, right? This is an example of, like, Uber got hacked. Uber is a big tech company. You would think that Uber has systems in place to prevent this. And generally they do. Like, their network is secured, pretty much. But listen to this. Uber's internal systems hacked, giving a bad actor full access. The hacker shared with cybersecurity researchers and the New York Times screenshots of the platform's internal systems. Researchers said they pretty much have full access to Uber. This is a total compromise. The report also said that the attacker claimed to have sent a text message. So the hacker sent a text message to an Uber employee claiming to be corporate IT. Do you see what happened now? Okay? Convincing the employee to share a password that allowed the hacker to access the company's systems. So, the employee receives the text message from someone who he thinks is a coworker, and so he shares the password. Is the employee dumb? Somebody said yeah. Is he naive? Is he gullible? Is he a sucker? See, thank you. He's a human being. I said, I don't think he's dumb or gullible or naive. But I understand your perspective. He's a human being. He is no different than any one of us. What did the employee want to accomplish? He wanted to do what? He wanted to do his job. He wanted to help. We just want to do our job. We just want to help. That's it. We just want to do the right thing. Why? Because we're good. Because we trust. Because we expect that other people are worthy of our trust. That's it. And that's why when the phone rings, when an email comes in, when you get a text, that's why you just want to believe it's real. Nobody wants to think that they're being lied to. Nobody wants to think that a predator, a sociopath, a psychopath is contacting them. Nobody wants to think that a bad guy is on the other end of the line. Why would you want to think that? It's a horrible thought. But that's what's going on. And bad guys know you want to help. Bad guys know you don't want to lose access to your account. Bad guys know you just want to be loved. And they take advantage of that. They take advantage of so much of what's good about us, and they use it for bad. And your job is just to be a bit more aware of what is really happening here. You know? Don't just automatically do the right thing. You know what I mean? Don't automatically just help or, react to what it is that their request is. Be a little bit more observant of what's happening in front of you and what the potential repercussions could be of you cooperating or responding. Okay?
How is the artificial intelligence affecting all of this?
Yeah, the question is, how is artificial intelligence? I'll go over that in a minute. That's one of my next slides. Now check this out. An imposter claiming to be an astronaut wooed a Japanese woman into paying for a return ticket to Earth. A 65-year-old woman in Japan paid the equivalent of $47,000 in a recent online scam that defied gravity. The con artist tricked the woman into believing he was a Russian astronaut who just couldn't afford a ticket back to Earth. The pair started a correspondence through Instagram, and the scammer claimed he was a cosmonaut above the International Space Station. He blamed poor cellular service aboard the orbiting space station for his lack of communication at times. Things between them quickly escalated when the fake astronaut professed his love to her, claiming that he would want to marry her once back on Earth, except there was one problem. He simply could not get off the International Space Station unless he had enough money for a ticket back to Earth. Is she stupid? Is she gullible? Is she naive? I mean, well, he says, yeah, totally. But ultimately, what is she? She's just human. She's lonely. She's lonely. She just wants to be loved. And that's pretty much all of us at some level, I mean, it just is. Like, I get it. Like, I have a really good friend who's a financial advisor, and he's on the North Shore, and his dad passed like a few years back, and his mom, like relatively young, like in her 60s, like she's now, a widow, and he comes to her house one day, like, a little bit less than a year into his dad passing, and he sees his mom, her laptop was open on the kitchen table, and he sees that she's on Facebook. He's like, oh, Facebook, Mom, that's interesting, And then he sees that she's on J-Date. And he's like, J-Date? Mom, like, what's going on? Like, my dad's been gone for, like, less than a year. She's like, hey, I still love your father, but I'm lonely. Like, I miss your father, but I just want companionship. I just want somebody to hang out with. Like, I'm not interested in getting married again. I just want to talk to people, And he's like, all right. And she got mad at him. She's like, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing, And he's like, all right. He backed off. He called me. 2 months later, he's like, dude, I got a problem. He's like, my mother, she met like this guy online, and he says he's a colonel in the U.S. Army, stationed in Afghanistan. And on one of the raids, they found a trunk of money in one of the buildings, U.S. cash. And he asked my mother to help him get the money back to the U.S. And so that meant that she had to wire, money to this guy to pay off certain people at certain checkpoints, right? Now, there was no guy, right? How much money do you think that she wired? Take a guess. 10,000 more. 50 more. 100 more. $235,000.
That's her inheritance.
That was my friend's inheritance. He was throwing up left and right. I mean, like, think about that. She just wanted to be loved. She wanted companionship. And you just want to believe, you know, like, and that's not abnormal. It's normal. And like, I get it. So just understand that not everything is as it appears to be. You know, if you're in a situation where you're feeling lonely, I think that loneliness trumps common sense all day long. Yeah, to be honest, I remember I experienced loneliness in my life. For me, it was in my early to mid-20s. That's when I experienced loneliness, and I felt it. And for me, what that turned into was relationships with young women that weren't healthy, okay? And I probably wasn't as healthy as I could or should have been either. And so you know how they say water seeks its own level? That turned into bad, destructive relationships is what that turned into, okay? And I, you know, I wasn't the best person I could be, therefore I was in a relationship with a person who wasn't the best person she could be, and we were not good for each other at all, and it was just bad, you know? And loneliness is what kept me from leaving. Loneliness is what kept her from leaving, you know? Because we weren't good people at the time. We weren't good, mature adults at the time. And it took us to get away from each other to realize that we needed to grow. And it wasn't easy to do that because the comfort of being together in a volatile relationship was better than the feeling of loneliness to be apart. And that's just not good, but that's how we are. See a therapist. You see it there? Well, I did, you know, but that's how it is. You therapist back there?
No, I just wanted to thank you for making us aware of all this stuff. Real gift.
Well, you are welcome, but that's the way it is. I mean, that's how we are. You know, and it doesn't make us wrong, it just makes us at risk. You know, so just pay attention.
What about that woman on 60 Minutes? She lost 2.1 million.
So you saw a woman on 60 Minutes that lost $2 million. I probably in crypto, I would imagine.
A lot of couldn't believe that her mother was like that. And at the end, she's dead. She's floating on the thing. Either she killed herself or somebody killed her.
Yeah, it's just, and these predators, they don't care about you and your feelings. They just want your money and everything you've ever worked for. Okay, so now, it may not be you that falls victim to a scam like that. It may be somebody in your life. So around you, the people that are around you that aren't here today, that may be a bit more vulnerable or a bit more gullible or a bit more lonely, you know, you might want to have that conversation with them.
See, but the thing is, you are helping my friend Ruthie. And I would be worried about her if it wasn't for somebody like you.
Look at, you know, like I know that like all of you have a clue because you're here today. And you wouldn't be here today unless you wanted to understand more about this stuff. You know? So just be careful. Every time the phone rings, every time an email comes in, right? Okay, so a few other things, and we're wrapping up very, very shortly, okay? So this is called a bad USB. A bad USB is a thumb drive you find in the ground. Okay? And you find a thumb drive in the ground, you pick it up and you plug it into your computer. That thumb drive could have a virus on it. Okay? A bad USB. This is a known scam. So if you saw a toothbrush on the ground, would you pick it up and use it? No. Same thing with the thumb drive. If anything, pick it up to properly dispose of it, but don't plug it into your computer. Bad USB is a real scam. All right? Somebody asked about AI voice cloning. I am freaked out by AI voice cloning. This stuff is real, and it's effective. Okay, there was a company in Hong Kong that got scammed for $25 million as a result of an AI voice and video scam. Okay, so an Arizona family was terrified a few months ago when what they thought was a kidnapping and ransom call turned out to be a total scam created by artificial intelligence. A mom received an anonymous call one January afternoon while her 15-year-old daughter was out of town on a ski trip. She heard her daughter answer the phone and panicking and screaming in the background, followed by a man's voice threatening to drug and kidnap her daughter unless he was paid $1 million. So think about it like this. The daughter, 15 years old, probably has a TikTok account, Instagram account, right? She's probably talking to her friends online, and her video is online, which means her voice is online, okay? And the new AI technology records the voice, it records the video. It takes all of that digital data, and it can duplicate the voice. It can duplicate the video. In this case, it was a phone call, and it duplicated the audio of the daughter. It can even duplicate the audio of her screaming and asking for help. And even though she might only have, say, 100 words that are communicated over video on TikTok, once the audio itself is captured of the actual voice, AI technology can translate an entire book using the exact same voice. Does that make sense? So when the phone rings, if it's a grandchild saying that they have been arrested and it's their voice and they need you to wire money, that is a commonly known grandparent scam. Do not wire the money. Say, grandchild, call me back in an hour. I can't call you back in an hour. I'll be in jail. Call me back in an hour. Call your grandson, call your son, call your daughter, find out what's going on. Don't respond. Okay? And when the phone does ring in an hour, have a loved one there to answer it. Or don't answer it at all. See what I mean? Just be very cognizant that these scams are prevalent and that AI voice scams are going to be taking over in the next decade. It's pretty bad. All right? Yeah.
We had a word, a safe word.
You have a safe word.
Because I got a call like that, and we had set it up when my grandkids were small, and only word that we would know. And so when I got the call, I says, "Oh, that's too bad. But what are you supposed to tell me now?" And the person said, "Click."
Yes, you should have safe words with your family if there's problems. And if they call you with an issue, you should know what the safe word, and they should know what the safe word is. Okay? So to wrap up, a few things. Hardware, so as far as your computer goes, we talked about this already. Your devices should be relatively newer. You know, like if you're like on a 10, 12-year-old device, there's more vulnerabilities on that older device unless you're on a newer device. So for example, like all my laptops are usually like within 5, maybe 6 years old, and then I usually upgrade. And I know that like that could be a bit expensive. It may not be in your budget. But the problem with older hardware is that the newer software, the newer security software may not work on an older hardware. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's always good to update your technology with newer. And if you're on Windows, that's fine. But like updating to a newer Windows operating system might be a little difficult. If you're already using an iPhone or an iPad, updating to a Mac is pretty easy. You know, I just think the Mac machines at this point are just so much better than the Windows machines. If you're on your Windows machine and you're fine and you're comfortable, that's just stay there. But if you were to upgrade and get a new hardware, consider a Mac. Okay. And then update your software, update your operating system, update your browser. And usually all of the software that comes across today automatically updates. And automatic updates are good for most of you. It's usually better to automatically update. So I automatic update with some stuff and I manually update with other things. Like I can't have my operating system manually update in the middle of a presentation. You know, so I manually update my operating system usually like when I'm not working. Okay. Let me see, Wi-Fi. In your home, you should password protect your Wi-Fi. That means, making sure that your neighbors can't log into your Wi-Fi. Right? So when you set up your Wi-Fi router, it should be password protected. Free Wi-Fi to your neighbors from your router is not really a good thing.
Do you just contact your provider and tell them that?
So for example, in your home, you might have like a Comcast.
I have Verizon.
You have like a Verizon router, correct? So, do you have to is your Verizon router password protected?
Well, it has, they gave you a password to begin with.
They gave you a password to begin with. So as long as you need that password to access your router at home, that means your neighbors can't access your Wi-Fi, and that's good, because you don't want that. You don't want people jumping on your Wi-Fi from the street, or if you're in a condo complex or an apartment complex, you don't want the guy upstairs or downstairs. Like, there's all kinds of reasons why you don't want your neighbors on your Wi-Fi, okay? And I'm not going to get into all the gory details of that. Yes?
The Wi-Fi that comes to your phone.
So your device has your mobile phone, your iPhone, your Android through Comcast or Verizon or AT&T, T-Mobile. It has its built-in LTE, 4G, 5G. Yeah, that's not actually Wi-Fi. That's the cellular connection. That's pretty secure. You can do anything on that and not worry about that. Okay? So that's really it. You guys good?
Yes.
Thank you. Ruthie Berg's right there.
Ruthie, thank you so much. This man is amazing, and you brought it.
My website is protectnowllc.com. Again, that's protectnowllc.com. Nice to meet you all, you guys. Thank you so much.
So very much.